εξέλιξης της μεσογειακής ενδοχώρας πιστεύω ότι μας ενδιαφέρει όλους μας. Ο καλύτερος, αλλά όχι ο μοναδικός τρόπος για να επιτευχθεί είναι η ανάπτυξη του τουρισμού στις διάφορες μορφές τους. Πριν μία εβδομάδα περίπου, συμμετείχα σε μία άλλη πολύ σημαντική ημερίδα με θέμα τον τουρισμό στις παράκτιες περιοχές της Μεσογείου. Αυτό το οποίο το συμπέρασμα από αυτή την ημερίδα ήταν ότι η ποικιλομορφία των περιοχών αυτών, το πολιτισμικό κάλος, το κλίμα και άλλα στοιχεία, αν αξιοποιηθούν σωστά, αναμφισβήτητα θα συμβάλλουν στην ανάπτυξη του τουρισμού και κατ' επέκταση στην αύξηση της επισκεψιμότητας των περιοχών αυτών από τουρίστες από όλο τον κόσμο. Κατά ανάλογο τρόπο, θέλω να πιστεύω ότι το μεσογειακό κλίμα, οι ομορφιές που είδαμε πριν λίγο και που αναμφισβήτητα υπάρχουν, η πλούσια πολιτιστική και πολιτισμική ιστορία αυτών των περιοχών, τα εμβληματικά βουνά που είναι και ο τίτλος της σημερινής ημερίδας, η σύγχρονη πολιτισμική δημιουργία αποτελούν αναμφισβήτητα στοιχεία που μπορούν, αν αξιοποιηθούν σωστά, να συμβάλλουν σημαντικά στην ανάπτυξη της μεσογειακής ενδοχώρας μέσα από την ανάπτυξη του τουρισμού στις διάφορες εναλλακτικές μορφές του. Εύχομαι καλή επιτυχία στη σημερινή ημερίδα και ευελπιστώ όλα τα στοιχεία που θα εξαχθούν να κωδικοποιηθούν και να αποτελέσουν τη βάση πάνω στην οποία θα συνεργαστούμε όλοι οι φορείς με σκοπό να επιτευχθεί ο στόχος. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Ευχαριστούμε τον Αντιπεριφερειάρχη, τον κύριο Συριγωνάκη. Να μου επιτρέψετε να πω εδώ ότι μας τιμά η παρουσία σας. Η Περιφέρεια Κρήτης είναι πάντα στο πλευρό του Ψιλορίτη, του ΑΚΟΜ. Η Περιφέρεια Κρήτης συμμετέχει σαν assistant partner, θα το πω αγγλικά, γιατί δεν μπορώ να το μεταφράσω τώρα ελληνικά. Οπότε η βοήθεια είναι δεδηλωμένη και σίγουρη. Να καλέσω τώρα στο βήμα για ένα σύντομο χαιρετισμό τον Δήμαρχο Ανογίων, κύριο Σοκράτη Κεφαλογιάννη, για ένα σύντομο χαιρετισμό.
Όταν συναντιόνται τα βουνά, όταν συναντιόνται οι κορφές, πάντα κάτι μεγάλο, κάτι ωραίο γεννιέται. Να σας καλωσορίσω με τη σειρά μου εδώ στα Ανόγια, σε μια οπτική γωνία του Ψιλορίτη. Είμαστε πολλές κοινότητες που απαρτίζουμε τον Ψιλορίτη, αλλά έχουμε και πολύ καλούς εταίρους στην περιφέρεια που μας στηρίζει σε κάθε πρωτοβουλία και σε κάθε δράση μας. Εγώ δεν θέλω να πω πολλά, εξάλλου πιστεύω ότι η χθεσινή σας εκδρομή σας έδωσε πάρα πολλές εικόνες, ώστε να είστε πλούσιοι. Έχω μονάχα να επισημάνω το σημαντικό ρόλο της ύπαρξης της αναπτυξιακής εταιρείας ΑΚΟΜ, Ψιλορίτης, που σε συνδυασμό με το γεωπάρκο του Ψιλορίτη που έχει ενταχθεί στους καταλόγους του UNESCO, είναι για εμάς ένα δυνατό σημείο επαναπροσδιορισμού της θέσης μας στον τουριστικό χάρτη της Κρήτης και της Ελλάδος και της Μεσογείου. Αυτή τη σκέψη θα ήθελα να μοιραστώ μαζί σας. Τώρα, είχατε την τύχη, έχουμε την τύχη και στις υπόλοιπες συναντήσεις που γίνονται να βρισκόμαστε στα μέρη σας και να βρεθείτε σήμερα εδώ στο δικό μας τόπο, μέσα από ένα πρόγραμμα του Ιντερεκ. Ωστόσο όμως, εγώ πιστεύω ότι κρατήστε την επαφή, κρατήστε την επικοινωνία και δείξτε ότι απλώς η ύπαρξη αυτού του προγράμματος ήταν μόνο η αρχή. και η συνεργασία και η κοινή προώθηση των κοινών συμφερόντων των βουνών θα έχει ένα και μόνο στόχο, την πρόοδο των ανθρώπων που έχουν επιλέξει να ζουν στα βουνά. Καλώς ήρθατε και πάλι στα Ανόγια.
Να ευχαριστήσω τον Δήμαρχο, ο οποίος ήταν και πρώην πρόεδρος του ΑΚΟΜ και Δήμαρχος Ανογιών, αλλά ξέρει τα πράγματα πολύ καλά. Και επίσης να του πω ότι πραγματικά έχει δίκιο ότι αυτή η προσπάθεια πρέπει να συνεχιστεί. Στο τέλος της εβδομάδας θα έχουμε την τελευταία συνάντηση των εταίρων του προγράμματος, όπου θα συναντηθεί το μέλλον, το network των εμβληματικών βουνών είναι δεδομένο, αλλά σε τι άλλο πρόγραμμα, σε τι άλλες συνέργειες μπορούμε να κάνουμε μαζί. Θα ήθελα τώρα να καλέσω στο βήμα τον κύριο Νικόλαο Ξυλούρη, Περιφερειακό Σύμβουλο της Περιφέρειας Κρήτης, πρώην Δήμαρχο Ανογίων, πρώην Πρόεδρο του ΑΚΟΜ. Τα ξέρει και αυτός πολύ καλά τα πράγματα.
Καλημέρα. Καλώς ορίσατε στο χωριό μας. Να μεταφέρω και το χαιρετισμό του Περιφερειάρχη του Σταύρου του Αρναουτάκη, που σαν να είναι εδώ μαζί μας, για να δηλωθεί η στήριξη της Περιφέρειας Κρήτης στις προσπάθειες που γίνονται για την ανάπτυξη της ενδοχώρας. Δεν θα σας κουράσω, θα πω έναν μικρό προβληματισμό σε σχέση με το θέμα εμβληματικά βουνά. Εμείς που ζούμε και εσείς που ζείτε, όσοι έχουμε αυτή την εμπειρία να ζήσουμε, να μεγαλώσουμε σε τέτοιους τόπους, καταλαβαίνουμε ότι υπάρχει μια αμφίδρομη σχέση του βουνού με τους ανθρώπους που ζουν στο βουνό. Και χωρίς να το θεωρήσω εγωιστικό, νομίζω ότι οι άνθρωποι αυτοί είναι ξεχωριστοί, είναι εμβληματικοί. Δεν ξέρω ποιος επηρεάζει ποιον ή ποιος αναδεικνύει ποιον. Μάλλον το βουνό, το περιβάλλον κάνει τους ανθρώπους, αλλά οι άνθρωποι αυτοί αναδεικνύουν το βουνό. Πρέπει λοιπόν να στηριχτούν όποιες προσπάθειες χρειάζονται για να μείνουν αυτοί οι άνθρωποι σε αυτούς τους δύσκολους τόπους. Και με αυτή την έννοια θεωρώ ότι η σημερινή συνάντηση, το σημερινό συνέδριο, πώς να το ονομάσω, είναι σε αυτή την κατεύθυνση. Να στηριχτούν οι υποδομές, οι ενέργειες, οι δράσεις, για να μένουν οι άνθρωποι στο βουνό. Το βουνό δεν έχει καμία αξία αν δεν το κατοικούν, αν δεν μένουν άνθρωποι για να το αναδεικνύουν και να υπάρχει αυτή η αμφίδρομη σχέση. Με αυτή την έννοια, λοιπόν, εμείς ως Περιφέρεια Κρήτης, τα είπε ο Περιφερειάρχης πριν, στηρίζουμε κάθε προσπάθεια, χαιρετίζουμε τη δική σας σημερινή συνάντηση και θα είμαστε μαζί αρρωγοί όσο μπορούμε για να συνεχίσει να υπάρχει, να αναπτύσσεται η ζωή σε αυτούς τους ευλογημένους τόπους, όπως είναι τα βουνά που αναφέρονται στη συνεδρίαση. Να είστε καλά, να έχετε μια καλή διαμονή στα Ανόγια και με το καλό να σας υποδεχτούμε ξανά. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Ευχαριστούμε τον κύριο Ξυλούρη. Πρέπει να πω εδώ πραγματικά ότι από όποιο πόστο και να βρίσκεται είναι κοντά μας και σημαντική παρουσία του το δείχνει αυτό. Ευχαριστούμε. Να πω, για να μην το ξεχάσω, ότι ο βουλευτής Ηρακλείου, κύριος Λευτέρης Αυγενάκης, δεν μπορεί να παρευρεθεί στις εργασίες. Θέλει όμως το χαιρετισμό του για την επιτυχία του συνεδρίου μας. Να μου επιτρέψετε μία τελευταία ανακοίνωση εκ μέρους μου. Την έμαθα κι εγώ πριν από λίγο. Πριν 2 μήνες περίπου το Γεωπάρκο του Ψιλορίτη είχε την αξιολόγηση από τους αξιολογητές της UNESCO. Χθες βγήκε η επίσημη ανακοίνωση της UNESCO ότι έχουμε πάρει την πράσινη κάρτα για άλλα 4 χρόνια, οπότε είναι κάτι σημαντικό για μας. Ευχαριστώ.
Bienvenue, bienvenidos, benvinguts, mirezevini, bienvenito, calas irtate. I'm Alain Jansan, I'm the coordinator of the lead partner of this project. In France, we have a say. We say that alone we go faster, but when we move together, we go a lot further. We come together for this cooperation. We came from 9 different territories, and we had an extra academic partner. We came from a school of tourism in Barcelona. We came from 5 different countries. We came together for cooperation. Cooperation is working together toward a common outcome. We've done this over 3 years. We had 7 transnational meetings of 3.5 days each. And these 3.5 days were extremely precious to learn about each other, to learn about our culture, to learn about our territory and their inhabitants, to learn about our way of being, our way of thinking, and our specific know-how. In summary, to learn about what we have in common, but most importantly, to learn about our differences. During these meetings, we have learned to listen to each other, and we even managed to co-decide and co-produce many things. That's not an easy thing, because we are 9 partners from very different organizational backgrounds. With this kind of democratic meeting where 24 people around the table have their say and we come to a common final decision, we could say that we are a small little Europe. What's important to say is that this process has proved extremely rewarding for each of us in taking ownership of our own share of the activities. Ultimately, I believe that this process has changes, and changes at an identity level. As individual, each of us working on it, as a partnership, but ultimately as territories. Today, we are proud to share this journey and to share our result. But when I say we, I'm talking very humbly, because even so you have a few partners in a room, the we includes all the proud local people from each territory who have made all these results possible. Okay? So let's share them together. Thank you.
Milene Séverine Bressot, and I will continue in English. I will be the moderator of this morning session. This day is full of emotion for me because it's the concretization of 3 years of an Interreg project. Obviously, today, it's not the end of the adventure, I hope, but an important step for all the partnership. I had the chance to be involved in this project since the beginning for the first transnational meeting in the foothills of the Canigou in 2012. This first meeting was a crucial step for us for the creation of the EMbleMatiC Mediterranean Mountain Networks. It was the beginning of the adventure, a long adventure full of work. You will discover it today with all the concrete realization. Full of passion. In this project, we have a very involved partnership and full of ambition for this Mediterranean mountains area. What distinguishes these 9 mountains from other areas, this is for me the strong identities, the strong territorial anchor, and this incredible love story with the mountains. But I am not saying more about this project because you will have a presentation from the partner. But just before beginning, because we are a small Europe, a small part of Europe in this room today, a small part of Mediterranean Europe, I will ask you to hands up for the people who come from Greece. Please, hands up, Greece. Just to see who is in the room. Okay. People coming from Italy. People coming from France. You know, I hope that at the end of the day, everybody will be mixed. Huh? People from Spain. And I think we have someone from Slovenia. Welcome. And just to know about who is who also, who is an elected representative? Please hands up. Okay. Who is private stakeholder? An entrepreneur and, okay. And public authority, of course, local authority, regional level, hands up. LAG, municipality, okay. Okay, thank you. Now it's time to giving you a presentation of the EMbleMatiC project. And because this is a cooperation project, we thought that it was a good thing to have a multi-voices presentation in order to have a cooperative presentation. Then I asked Florian Chardon, lead partner of the project, representing Canigou Mountains from France, Kostas Zapounidis from Pyrrhiki Anaxiaki, representing Olympus Mountain in Greece, Rosa Colomer from Development Agency of Bergueda, representing Pedra Forca Mountain area, Sophie Georgentoum from the ex-Marseille-Provence metropolitan area, representing the Sainte-Victoire mountain area in France, and Vincenzo Papa, please come to Vincenzo Papa from the Lag Gal, Terre dell'Etne e dell'Alcantara, representing Etna mountain area in Italy. Of course, this is only a sample of partners because we have 5 other partners, but they will present you our project. What do you prefer, to be here, to be here?
Yeah. So, hello everybody. To begin, I will present you what was the initial intuition of the Canigou Mountain when we have decided to launch the first partnership offer of our network. Canigou was involved in a national network called Grand Site of France, gathering more than 50 territories concerned both with notoriety and tourism flow management, which are compromising their sustainability. After more than 10 years, trying to change the tourism strategy on the field, we have decided to complete the national comparison with a transnational one with other emblematic Mediterranean mountains. At the end of 2012, we have launched this partnership offer. Alan? Yeah, this one, the original one. Almost everything of what we have done together now was written. The topic: networking of landmark Mediterranean mountain, exchange of experiences and tourism development. And the objective were, first, to get to know each other and share experiences, to determine common needs and problems, initiate one or two experimental actions in common, and fourth, ideas for the future, especially for the 2014, 2012 and 20 period. Thanks to the Europe Direct and LAG network, the adventure was launched. And finally, next one, 5 emblematic mountains, among them Olympus, Pedraforca, Sainte Victoire, and Canigou, have answered of the message of the battle launched in the sea. More than enough to build a first leader cooperation and have a first meeting in Canigou in September 2013.
So it was back in the end of summer 2013 that we have received the email from Florian and Canigou about his idea and inspiration about a network of landmark Mediterranean mountains. It was landmark mountains, not emblematic back then. We have examined in detail this idea with Betty Partzalidou, my director, and we concluded that it was very close to our scope, to our objectives, and what we were doing in Olympus as a local development agency. As a matter of fact, we faced a problem because when the first meeting was organized, I had to be in another meeting in Armenia, in Yerevan. But I say, so what? I can go. So we agreed to participate in this initial meeting, which was very important for the participation to this network. And that was it, flying from emblematic Ararat to the Pyrenees and Canigou, and participating in this meeting. I arrived in Canigou after a whole night of flights, and nobody was there. So I say, okay, that's not very good news. Then, after some hours, I've seen the whole team that participated coming down from hiking to the mountains, to the Canigou. So I say, these people are like us. They appreciate the field work, so we can cooperate. It's not only speaking and not going to the field. So 2 meetings have followed in Greece, Olympus, to work out what had been our common problems, our emblematic identity, the first ideas about the common criteria, the picturesque landscape, historic places, myths and legends, biodiversity, power of inspiration. And above all, what was important is that we concluded that emblematic was the word to characterize the experience that is linked to our mountain territories and to the network. We created a charter about the values that we stand for, to apply the sustainable approach, to preserve cultural and natural heritage, and to be an open mountain. Now, if you ask me today why we have decided to participate in this effort, in this network, you can easily ask, isn't Olympus a well-recognized mountain and well-preserved and sustainably developed? Our answer is that is the challenge about networking that made us participate. It's about having the same values in different mountains. It's about creating similar touristical products in all the mountains, using common tools, and more above all, using the same brand name, EMbleMatiC. All these were presented in 2015 in Razlog, Bulgaria, in an international conference. More important, there we met other network partnerships, Euromontana, the Mountain Partnership, conventions, and then we understand what the meaning of having a network with a common scope is. As an ancient Greek storyteller Aesop said, in union there is strength, and it's all about playing this game together. And we may have all come in different ships, but we are in the same ship now, as Martin Luther King said. Thank you.
But in 2015, LEADER program finishes and finishes. What's happened? Okay. Once this program was finished here, we started exploring another ways to follow up and to continue with the work done until then. So in half year after, more or less, EMbleMatiC program organized an open day in Marseille in order to explain the new period of this program, and also they give us the opportunity to meet new possible partners for different projects. Florian attended this meeting, meet potential new partners, and knew the new rules of the EMbleMatiC program. So in September 2015, we organized a working session in Saint-Victoire, and we invite other potential partners that agree in working with the same issues that we discussed and we worked on LEADER project. So in this meeting participate other mountains, it participate Corsica, Sardinia, other mountains from France, from Spain, from Italy, from Albany, from other countries. And following the EMbleMatiC values, we identify common challenge for work on sustainable tourism. Mainly, we identify geographical problems, especially the beach and the summit of the mountains. We identify a problem on seasonality. All people come in summer or in winter, but not in spring and autumn. And economical problems, returns on these territories. For there, we decide to start a new partnership, and we apply for an EMbleMatiC project called EMbleMatiC. We organize a project around three main objectives: to rebalance the tourism flows between the sea and the mountain, and especially to spread these actions on the hinterland, to build and experiment a slow tourism offer, different from those we have at the moment, and to improve the sustainable recognition of the network. We thought that we work alone is very difficult to be recognized internationally, but if we work together, it's easier. So we start with this history, and we gain this project, and in January 2017, we started with this new adventure. We meet in Canigou again. We repeat the same experience, and we meet all partners, and we started with this new adventure.
So, there are main outputs of our project, and they correspond to the overall aim, which has just been presented by Rosa, so you remember it.
The first of them is the creation of 9 eco-journeys, 9 eco-itineraries. During one of our 7 meetings, here is the 7th one, which gathered all of us, we all worked and agreed on 30 common attributes, 30 common characteristics that our projects had to comply with. In particular, these characteristics were on sustainability and of ethics. Thanks to this work, we have been able to create on each territory, I will say, to reuse again an image invented by Rosa, with the same ingredient, we created on each territory a very specific recipe. So a very specific eco-itinerary, which has in common the 30 attributes and the emblematic spirit of our mountains. Further than the overall aim of the project, we have tried to make visitors share our specific ways of lives and to enjoy the unexpected. I mean, not to go on the top of the mountains, not only to go to the beach, and not only to have the expected postcard of our territories. We all want our guests to discover the hinterland, our hinterland territories, and to participate to their specific local activities and to their development. To implement this, we worked hand in hand with our stakeholders, with all the stakeholders of our territories, the municipalities, the producers, the restaurants, accommodations, craftsmen, and these stakeholders are really the basement of our eco-journeys, and they are aimed to implicate themselves in sustainable development for their own activities. They are the ones who will make these eco-journeys functioning, be alive in the midterm, because it won't stop with the 31st of October. It's aimed to last long, midterm or long term. Yesterday, some of you could discover the passionate and very authentic Psiloritis eco-journey. To promote and to make significant these eco-journeys on the field, we all have created thematic signage, orientation tables, videos, as the one you have seen and that has been presented on the introduction of the conference. Touristic guides and maps? Yes, as you will be able to see, some of them are presented on the windows there.
Buongiorno. I don't know what to say because my friends told everything now. Anyway, it started a few years ago, and with only 3 partners, to become then a partnership of 9 mountains. And I like but to point out that what is very important, that we are a network. And this is one of our added value. I could say is our most important value, to be a network. Ours, as you can see, is a network of mixed cultures, different nations, various ideas. But what is important, we are Mediterraneans. So together we could build a common idea for an alternative tourism in our hinterlands. We used to say, as Alain already said, if we move alone, we move faster. But if we move together, we go farther. And this is very important, the cooperation. We are then, as I said, 9 partners and 1 university, and we have met 9 times. We have met in 7 transnational meetings, with the last of this week. Every time we discuss, we work hard for 3.5 days with the work of confrontation, but as well discovering the place where we have been, the territory. We have known each other. Alain, I said again what each other, and we discovered this is very important, not only our beauty, the beauty of our territories, but our strength and also our weaknesses. We have a lot to work about it. What is important that I said that we listen each other and we co-produce. We build something together. Sometimes we fight together, but at the end we had our common idea. And our project is based on values like proud local people, picturesque landscapes, power of inspiration, historic places. And then we built an eco journey based on our common values. Eventually, at the end, we produced a tourist guide for our itinerary. I would say is a traveler guide, and that is the outcome of our common idea of a sustainable and responsible tourism in the hinterland. And we show our peculiarity of our territory with a video that you have seen before. And with our tourist guide, we tried to help our territory to redirect the tourism flow from the coast, extending the seasonality and prioritizing, this is very important, the local resources, and helping with this work, the sustainable and the responsible tourist growth of our areas. So let's keep and promote our mountains. Thank you.
We are the EMbleMatiC Mediterranean Mountains Network. Our network is made up of 9 unique living mountains located around the Mediterranean Sea in 5 different countries: France, Greece, Italy, Spain, and Albania. We have a common goal, which is to protect and promote our natural and cultural resources by positioning a new tourism. All of the 9 mountain territories share common singularities when it comes to assessing their value. The sense of identification and pride that the local people feel for their mountains. Universal, national, or regional recognition, which adds value to its reputation. Mythological attributes and folk tales. The power of the mountains to inspire creativity among artists. Exceptional picturesque landscapes. Our mountains abound in historical heritage, from their towns to their trails and emblematic personalities. The mountains of the network face a common challenge. They are attractive but very fragile. They all receive a large number of visitors who want to visit them during the short summer months. They see the mountains as a one-day excursion and then return to the coastal resorts. Based in our emblematic singularities and located in the foothills of the mountain, each eco-itinerary is offering 1 or more routes accessible year-round by public transport, offering eco-friendly activities like hiking, bike touring or paragliding, where visitors are free to explore and spend a few days in the hinterland region. The network has incorporated local producers and encouraged interaction with residents and is giving priority to locally owned accommodation. In other words, the eco-itineraries open our hinterland territories to new visitors, whilst reducing their ecological footprint and ensuring the respect of local rules and customs. In each mountain, we are rebalancing tourist flows, extending the season and improving economic returns for the territories. Our achievement is a new model of slow tourism, favouring non-saturated spots and at the same time preserving the cultural and natural heritage of the areas. We offer experiences, 9 eco journeys at a relaxed rhythm. In the end, it's not about reaching the summit of our mountains, but about enjoying the itinerary around it. The important experience must be the journey itself. Our vision of the future is to extend our know-how and our achievements to other regions that share the same criteria by welcoming new members to the network, to create a common brand and marketing strategy. For more information, keep following our progress on our website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Okay, now let's put our project in perspective. For us, you know now, you can see that you have understood the main challenge and the main objective of our EMbleMatiC project. And it was also important to have the feedback and some advices from an external speaker. That's why we mobilized Guillaume Cromer. Who is Guillaume Cromer? He's French at first. He lives in the Alps. And is currently in Grenoble, in the Alps in France. But he sent us a video in order to present, to give his speech. Guillaume Cromer is the director of a French consultancy called ID Tourism, specialized in tourism marketing. He is also the chairman of the Association of Sustainable Tourism Stakeholders, and is also a fan of outdoor activities and a mountain lover, as all of you. He has notably spent 64 days of trekking in Nepal. It's not in Europe, it's not in Mediterranean, but it's also very emblematic, maybe. And then we will have his speech now, and he will give us his feedback on our project. Let's go.
Bonjour à tous, mon nom est Guillaume Cromer et je vais prendre la parole pendant quelques minutes pour vous expliquer ma vision des choses sur
will be in English after, don't worry.
de tourisme durable. I will switch in English because it will be easier for the translation. And, well, let's go. So, sorry not to be here today because to speak about this project I just discovered a few weeks ago. You know, 3 years ago, I left Paris because I miss mountains, and I did part of my scholarship in Gap in south of the Alps in France. So I decided to move back to the Alps, but in Grenoble, in the capital of the Alps. So, my name is Guillaume Cromer, and I'm a consultant in tourism marketing and tourism strategy, leading a company named ID Tourism. I'm also the chairman of an association here in France. The name is ATD, for Acteurs du Tourisme Durable. This means like sustainable tourism players. And we are now more than 150 players gathering in ATD, and our main focus is to change tourism in a positive and sustainable manner. So I'm not here today with you in Greece because we are organizing our fourth summer university on sustainable tourism in France, in La Rochelle. We asked me to give you my few insights and point of view about this project, EMbleMatiC Mediterranean Mountains. So I will speak about 3 points. The first one is climate change and climate change consequences on tourism and on the destinations. Second one is over-tourism risks. And the third one is a marketing strategy and the relation with big OTA players. So first one, I will speak about climate change. You know, last week, IPCC launched a new report on the ocean and cryptosphere. There is a big risk of collapse. Emergency is clear, and consequences of climate change on our lives will be big, really big. The emblematic mountains in Mediterranean, they are fragile. They will be largely impacted by climate change. Erosion, fires, and other natural risks will appear for humans, inhabitants, and also visitors. You will need to anticipate these impacts. You will need to work on a resilience strategy. And maybe also to anticipate some crisis communication plan, because we don't know what is coming. investment will be needed also. But investment will be, and my advice will be to invest in people, not in infrastructure. One of the few good things about climate change, there is just a few one, but this one can be interesting for us, is that mountains will have like natural attractivity thanks to the coolness of the destination. Just last summer in France, we have very good figure about tourism businesses in mountains, in the Alps, in the Pyrenees. The figure were really good. You know that more and more heat waves will push tourists higher in mountains to look for coolness. And this is the good news for economy, but also this is potential risks for over-tourism peaks. And this leads me to the second point, over-tourism. You hear about this in Barcelona, in Venice, in Berlin, in the Mont Blanc. You maybe meet these moments, these over-tourism risks in your destination, in mountains, in the Pyrenees. For me, over-tourism is a social and environmental problem. Too many persons in the same place during the same moment in one place. Then you have inhabitants that are angry, and also tourists which are not very happy with the good experience in the destination. So there is many risks about over-tourism. How can we avoid this? You will need to manage tourism flows and to create a real communication with inhabitants, because over-tourism is a social problem. And you need to manage a real tourism strategy. And you will see that tourism strategy is complex, very complex. This is the central point of your EU project, and this is great. You work on the good points. New products means new targets, not only hikers, and new niche markets. And these new markets, they are built from specific new needs of the people, of the tourists. Yet, this can work only with powerful destination brand. And the name of the mountains here are mainly the brands. Who will lead this brand strategy in destination? You need to work on this. The brand destination is very, very important to attract people. And all the marketing strategy and the marketing action, they can be a good solution to attract people in different places and in different seasons. For this, you will need also data to connect directly with people and to push them in the right place during the right seasons, And data are really important today to push some promotion, to push some good products, and to convince people to come and to visit this place and not just go up in the mountains. Because more and more tourists are using this. Before coming, during the trip, and after the trip. And more we are coming in the era of predictive and push marketing. And this is also a good question. So who will do this job in the destination? Who is the organization who will find the data, push the good marketing action, develop marketing and predictive marketing? And do we have these data? So many questions that can be really important on this pure project and the future of the project. And finally, the third point is about your relation with big OTA players, so online travel agencies. They have data. They are good to make good marketing. What strategy do you have to follow with these players? Airbnb, Booking, Expedia, they are very big, very powerful. If you want to ignore them, maybe this is not the best solution, because they don't need you to push the destination and to push tourists in the destination. Maybe we have to be smarter. Maybe we want to work with them. Maybe let them think you are nice and cooperative. But be strong and intransigent on the other part. The solution is you need to follow, to monitor, and to manage your strategy. You need to invest to measure tourism flows, to add good data and to train your professionals not to be too much dependent to this OTA. And for your strategy, you need to build action plan directly with communities, not only local communities and local inhabitants, but also communities online, on social media. And by doing some good contents, you are doing some good videos nowadays. You need more contents to promote and to attract people in the good moments on destination, to manage the flows of tourists. But also you need to create good partnership with, I don't know, tour operators, maybe bloggers, maybe other partner. And finally, you need also to have new KPIs, key performance indicators. Because a marketing strategy is not and must not be a growth strategy. You need to integrate in the performance destination and definition. You need to integrate indicators on social and environmental issues also. And this can be a good innovation for the future of the destination, is to redefine also the performance. And so performance must integrate sustainability indicators like inhabitants' well-being, like biodiversity, like greenhouse gases emissions, like local expenses of the tourists. but maybe other indicators. So the question about marketing, to push and to struggle over tourism, is really key for me and for the future of the project and the future of those 9 destinations of emblematic mountains. Well, I think I just finish with my 3 points, and if you have any comments, questions, I will come in live by Skype to exchange with you about this project. Thank you very much.
Okay, finally, he couldn't be with us by Skype, but I think we have some first very key points in his speech concerning some advices in terms of branding destination, the importance of marketing to struggle over tourism situation, to follow, manage and monitor our tourism strategy, and for that we need data, but not only data, the number of visitors, because we don't want necessarily to increase the tourism, but we have to take into account also social and environmental issue, and that's, I think, some important points. And concerning these advices, I think the topic of the workshop this afternoon will give us some good experience and maybe some inspiration to develop concrete solution on our respective area. For example, we will have some example concerning the calculation of footprint for an eco-journey. We will have a workshop concerning the mobilization of the private stakeholders. We will have also a workshop concerning the commercialization and the marketing strategy. And all the points that have been mentioned, I think we will have this afternoon during the workshop. First, good practices in order to be inspired and to continue on this path. Then let's continue. We have a general feedback from on our project, but now, you know, almost all of you have participated yesterday to the field visit, to the learning expedition in Ida Mountain. And it's also important for us, but especially for the hosting partner, to have your feedback. And that's why we ask you to, we have given you yesterday, at the beginning of the learning expedition, we have given you a notebook in order that you give us your feedback. And now we will, with my colleague Cecilia, we have prepared a synthesis of your feedback, but do not hesitate also to feed this synthesis. At first, in the notebook, we ask your feeling concerning the eco-journey based on your 5 senses. I mean the sight, the smell, the hearing, the taste, and the touch. Of course, we can't integrate in this slide all the answers, but we try to point out the more common answer. And then, Cecilia, what can you tell us about the 5 senses? Cecilia, microphone, please, for the translator.
So what you have seen, of course, first of all, you saw mountains. Fantastic mountains, as you said. Stones, of course. But you also saw people. For you, they were nice and relaxed. Like the image of Greek people maybe we have, but I can agree, they were relaxed and really nice. And of course, you also saw geological history through the sponges that we have seen, the archaeological sponges, the cave, this cave. This was mainly what you have seen and what you have heard now. What you have heard. Most of all, it was kind of funny because you all heard the same thing, the ship bells. But you also heard Greek people, of course the language, but through their history, through what they mentioned, through what they explained to us, you also heard the proudness, their stories, personal stories sometimes, like in the museum. And of course, the biodiversity as well, birds, insects, wind in the trees. And for some of you, actually, you didn't hear anything, and that was perfect. You just heard nature and the silence, and sometimes it feels really good just to feel the mountain like this. What you have touched, sorry. The nature, the stones, the trees, the different woods, the traditions. For example, the mountain, the shepherd buildings, like in the restaurant. Sponges, wood, rocks. What you have smelled. For most of you, it was the food. I won't tell everything, but roasted lamb, cheese, of course. What I like very much, the Mediterranean flavors, as some of you expressed. And what was interesting as well, it was that you smelled the nature, the wood, local herbs, just the atmosphere sometimes. And to finish, what you have tasted, once again, the food comes first. Cheese. Yogurt, for some of you it was even the best yogurt of your life, apparently. I totally agree as well. The raki as well, typical food. And to finish, my favorite, you also tasted the emblematic identity. So that's all for the 5 senses.
And maybe some of you wanted, before we continue with the other criteria, maybe some of you would like to add something or to share their feeling with us. Anybody? Please.
For the one who didn't have the chance to participate yesterday, for example, just one anecdote or we can...
Nobody? Okay, let's continue.
Okay. And then, your feedback on the learning expedition through the emblematic criteria. So for most of you, the most emblematic criteria that was met was proud local people. It's true that we heard their history and their proudness of their local territory. And then the picturesque landscape. We have seen mountains and caves, sponges all the day long. Legends and myths was the third emblematic criteria that came after this. And Mediterranean identity, of course. Particular ecosystem as well. We didn't mention all the criteria, but there are plenty. But for most of you, it was really the proudness of local people. And then you also have some suggestions, of course, something that you noticed and that could be maybe improved in the future for this eco journey or for others. Everything that is linked to plastic. It can be plastic bottles, the spoons that we use to taste the wonderful products, of course. Everything linked to waste management in general, actually. And then about the transport. Yesterday we took the bus. Of course it was really pleasant and it was a private bus for all of us. But some of you wondered, are there local buses for visitors to have the chance to discover the different activities? Other eco-friendly transport may be used, like bikes, maybe electric bikes, because sometimes it is a bit high. Yeah. So it's difficult, of course. So it was just questions that you mentioned, and maybe you will have the chance to react just after. Your main surprises. Most of you didn't know about the geological history of the place. And it was the same for me, actually. It was a good surprise to discover this history. The traditional way of life. You were surprised by the mix between modernity and the way that Greek people kept their identity, their truthness, and actually their traditional way of life. And you were also surprised because of the number of the visitors in the different activities. So maybe we were just lucky and we were mostly always alone and had the chance to discover the amazing places like this only for ourselves. But only a few visitors were with us. Maybe. And to finish, the three main words to summarize the learning expedition day of yesterday. Authenticity, everything related to calm, slow life. It was quiet and even deep experience for you. Proud Mediterranean people, as you see, it always came up. Tasty food, of course, always. Hospitality of people, and to finish, the landscapes. Which were amazing.
Thanks, Cecilia. Are some of you would like to add something to feed this very short report that we prepared yesterday evening? Yes, I think I need a reaction from the hosting area.
Δεν θα το έλεγα αντίδραση, απλά μια επισήμανση. Μια επισήμανση σε σχέση με αυτό που είπε η Σεσίλια. Ανέφερε, δυστυχώς, υπάρχουν ελάχιστοι τουρίστες. Διαφωνώ λίγο με το δυστυχώς. Υπήρχε κόσμος, αλλά ο κόσμος θα πρέπει να είναι ελεγχόμενος. Δεν είναι ο στόχος μας να είναι πάρα πολύ, να είναι τόσο πολύς ο κόσμος. Θέλουμε να είναι λίγος, ποιοτικός τουρισμός, και δεν αναφέρομαι στους ανθρώπους, να μπορεί να είναι η προσφορά των υπηρεσιών σωστή, έτσι ώστε να μπορούμε να ανταποκριθούμε χωρίς να υπάρχουν προβλήματα σε σχέση με το περιβάλλον, σε σχέση με τους χώρους που επισκέπτονται, να τηρηθεί αυτή η ισορροπία του sustainable, αυτό που αναφέρουμε. Λίγο με το δυστυχώς είναι η παρατήρησή μου. Φυσικά σηκώνει παραπάνω τουρίστες η περιοχή. Φυσικά μπορούμε να ανταπεξέλθουμε σε παραπάνω κόσμο. Απλά να κρατήσουμε κάποιες ισορροπίες για να μπορεί και να διατηρηθεί ο παραδοσιακός τρόπος ζωής, να μπορούμε και οι άνθρωποι να μην επηρεαστούν άμεσα από όλη αυτή την κατάσταση, αλλά να υπάρχει μια ελεγχόμενη εντός ή εκτός εισαγωγικών διαδικασία ανάπτυξης τουριστικής, που είναι και ο βασικός στόχος του προγράμματος.
Thank you.
Νομίζω ότι από τις παρατηρήσεις που είδα, νομίζω ότι ήταν πραγματικά έπρεπε να είναι αυτές. Νομίζω. Δηλαδή για μένα ήταν φυσιολογικές. Τις περίμενα αυτές τις απαντήσεις. Τις γνώμες. Αυτό που είπε και η Εύη, θα ήθελα να προσθέσω το εξής, ότι όπως σας είπαμε, επειδή και το περιβάλλον του βουνού είναι τέτοιο, δεν μπορούσαμε να πάμε σε πάρα πολλά μέρη. Διαλέξαμε μία διαδρομή που είχε κάποια βασικά σημεία. Στη Ζόμηθο, για παράδειγμα, είναι ακόμα αρχαιολογικός χώρος υπό εξκαφή. Άρα δεν μπορεί να τον επισκεφθούν. Δυστυχώς. Περιμένουμε. Είναι εδώ και ο Δήμαρχος, θα μπορέσει να μας πει κάποια λόγια. Έτσι δεν είναι, Δήμαρχε? Και το ιδέων άντρων. Έχουμε κάποια προβλήματα εκεί θεσμικού περιεχομένου από τις ελληνικές αρχαιολογικές υπηρεσίες, τις οποίες προσπαθούμε να λύσουμε. Το σπήλαιο των Ζωνιανών έχει πάρα πολύ επισκεψιμότητα. Μπορεί να μην είδαμε τουρίστες εκεί, αλλά έχει πάρα πολύ μεγάλη επισκεψιμότητα. Είναι περίπου 30 με 40.000 επισκέπτες το χρόνο. Είναι δηλαδή ένα από τα, να το πω, highlight της περιοχής μας. Σίγουρα δεν υπάρχει επίσης στο σπίτι του Βοσκού. Υπάρχουν οργανωμένες εκδρομές, αλλά εκείνη τη μέρα περίμενε εμάς. Οπωσδήποτε υπάρχει δυνατότητα για μεγαλύτερη αύξηση των επισκεπτών και, όπως είπε και η Εύη, να υπάρχει μία, δεν θα το έλεγα ελεγχόμενη, αλλά ένα τουριστικό προϊόν που θα φέρνει ποιοτικούς επισκέπτες. Και επισκέπτες που θα μπορεί η περιοχή να τους σηκώσει για τη βιώσιμη ανάπτυξή της. Δεν θέλουμε να γίνουμε, που είναι δύσκολο ο Ψιλορίτης να γίνει κάτι παρόμοιο με τον τουρισμό της παραλίας. Τώρα, έχετε δίκιο, υπάρχουν προβλήματα, εμείς δεν θέλουμε να τα κρύψουμε, και για το περιβάλλον, το οποίο σιγά-σιγά θεωρώ υπάρχει ευαισθητοποίηση, ενημέρωση, ώστε να το διαχειριζόμαστε καλύτερα, όσον αφορά τα πλαστικά, όλα αυτά. Χαρήκαμε ότι πέρασε η αυθεντικότητα, ο παραδοσιακός τρόπος ζωής και ότι ο μύθος του βουνού που εμπνέει τους ανθρώπους του. Ελπίζω μια άλλη φορά να έχουμε διορθώσει ορισμένα πράγματα, οπότε θα έχουμε καλύτερες παρατηρήσεις. Αυτά, ευχαριστώ.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, and thank you for every participant to give yesterday this book note, which is an important feedback for the local host. Now we will begin with a new session. It's time for our panel discussion. How can Mediterranean and interland areas improve the sustainability dimension of the tourism policy? A large topic. And for this discussion, we will have 3 speakers. But the first one is based in the United Kingdom at the moment. But we will have, don't worry, not a new video, but we will have him. He will make a presentation through Skype, but a live presentation. And that's why we ask each of you, and please respect, because if not, we will have problems with the Wi-Fi connection. We will ask you to disconnect all your phone and computer from the Wi-Fi in order that we optimize the Wi-Fi connection for the Skype. And in 30 minutes, you will be able to refine the Wi-Fi. We are all Wi-Fi dependent. And the first speaker is Xavier Font. He's a professor of sustainability marketing at the University of Surrey in the United Kingdom. He conducts courses for businesses on how to market and communicate sustainability. He works for various organizations, for example, European Commission, national tourist boards, national park, industry association and businesses. He has written also reports to promote pro-sustainable behavior in tourism business for a lot of tourism organizations. For example, Visit England, Visit Wales, the Catalan Tourist Board, WWF. He also carry out a lot of consultancy projects, which include, for example, the writing of the feasibility study for the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. He supports organizations in the process of accreditation of sustainable tourism certification programs. He supports also the development of a methodology to improve the project management of sustainable tourism projects. He writes also some articles concerning marketing strategy. As you can see, he has a lot and a deep experience in sustainable tourism, especially with private stakeholders. And Xavier will give a presentation, and we will see him by Skype. and he will try to answer to two main questions. How can small businesses reach the market of sustainable tourism? And how can local authority help small businesses in this field? And we will have his presentation at first, and then we can debate. He will stay with us, and we can have a debate and discussion if you have any question. But we don't see him, no? You know this music. Hello. Hello, Xavier. Do you hear us? No. Technology problems. But you will see that cooperation between all of us, we will succeed.
Can you hear me?
Yes. And can you hear us? Can you hear us? Yes.
Okay. Can hear you now.
Okay. Hello, Xavier. I have introduced you, but I have described your profile, and I give you now the floor.
Okay. The sound was a little bit broken when you were just speaking now, so I couldn't understand everything you said. So I'm hoping that can you understand me? Can you hear me well? Excellent. Right. So I believe that somebody at your end will change the slides for me, and I will just basically take you through the presentation I've done. I know a few of you have seen part of this presentation at an event in Barcelona back in June. So I, just forgive me if I repeat myself a little bit if you already saw a little bit of the presentation. Can you see the presentation now? Yeah, okay, great. So let me just start. And essentially, I've been asked to talk about how can marketing communication help businesses and tourist destinations to be more sustainable. I think in the past, we have seen that many of the destinations have focused on marketing just as a way of attracting more tourists. And we've also seen businesses think of marketing just as a tool to attract more tourists as well. And we've never really seen it as a tool to actually create positive change. So if we move to the first slide, in this slide, I mentioned that most businesses actually that I have researched are doing something we call greenwashing. Essentially, what I mean by that is that we have seen that 70% of the sustainability actions that small tourism businesses, typically in rural tourism destinations, are doing never get communicated. And part of the reason for that is because we've seen that many of the businesses think that when you communicate sustainability, it comes across as you are being less competent and you're not being as professional as if you just focus on the key aspects that relate to quality. Now, of course, I can find ways of showing that this really is not the case. But if we move to the next slide, where you have some chimneys, what I'm also seeing is that actually the large businesses are very good at marketing and they've got all the systems and all the knowledge to do that. But actually, in the large businesses, 25% of what they communicate is greenwashing. What do I mean? That they're communicating that the business, all of the Hilton hotels, all of the Marriott hotels are doing something, when in effect, when we then do spot checks in the field, we find out that at least 25% of those businesses don't do some of the things that the head office is promoting. The reason why I'm showing you these couple of slides is because very often what we find is that we tend to assume that all marketing of sustainability tends to be greenwashing, and that really isn't the case, but quite some of it will be. Next slide. We've done a lot of research as well, looking at the quality of messages, and we've seen that many of the messages that get communicated, even with businesses that are award-winning for sustainability, are not very persuasive. So we tend to communicate things that actually don't really meet the customer's needs. We're realizing that they're not presented in a way that is relevant to what the customer wants. So we see many of the sustainability messages that are passive, not active. What do I mean by that? That they're not allowing the tourist to be in the center of the experience, that the tourist is being, observing, but not being the protagonist of many of the activities. Whereas what we find is that tourists do want to be the protagonist of their holiday, not just a spectator. Okay, very few of the messages that are being used for communicating sustainability, the guest essentially is benefiting from the experience. Very often actually it's the business reducing costs, or there's a very vague benefit for society. So let me take you to the next slide. I am sustainable whenever possible. You will know many of the businesses in your tourist destinations that have messages like this. I buy local food whenever possible. I contract local staff whenever possible. Good message or bad message? Let me just give you an example here. Let's assume for a second that here you are not all guests at the EMbleMatiC Interreg project conference, but you are all guests at my wedding. And in a minute, the bride is going to arrive. Dum, 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 dum. And when she gets to the front, as the groom, I need to tell her some lovely words, my wedding vows, that will convince her to marry me forever. Imagine the best thing I can think of is, darling, I'll be a good husband whenever possible. How many of the girls in the room would want to marry me? I suspect 0. Right? This is the quality of the sustainability communication that you guys are writing and that you're encouraging the business in your destination to write. We can do better than this. Okay, next slide. Definitely, you can do better than that. So I want to take you through quite quickly 5 benefits of sustainability marketing to show you where we can go, and then we can discuss where the problem is. So next slide, how to reduce your impacts. There are many ways in which you as a business and you as a destination can help businesses within your destination to learn how to use marketing communication to reduce your impacts. Can you see the photo of the cup on the right-hand side? It says, drink in the view, stunning, isn't it? We aim to keep it that way. Why are we writing this on the cup and not somewhere else? Because it's on the cup where the tourist will actually get to read it. This is from a beach hut in one of the typical beach, coffee shops that was in a tourist destination that I visited. And I thought this was so clever. If you write this in the actual hut, nobody will read it. If you write it on your cup, people will read it. And we found a reduction in the amount of waste being produced. The website you can see in the middle from this website, a company called Loosman's Fish and Grill, it does want to talk about sustainable food, but essentially what it talks about is meet our great British suppliers. And the emphasis in showing photos is in being trustworthy, in being honest. The sign at the bottom, it says no smoking, it makes your breath smell and your teeth go horrid, as well as being a danger to the creatures that live in our forest. If there is something that is difficult to say to your customers, try to use humor, try to be engaging, and try to be honest. Don't put a sign in your hotel that says, save planet Earth by reusing a towel. We all know that to save planet Earth is going to take a little bit more than reusing one towel. So you can find ways of using much more direct and engaging communication to reduce impacts. Next slide. You should find ways of attracting more customers by using sustainability communications. But I have a problem with this. Many of the businesses that communicate sustainability tend to believe that because I'm a sustainable hotel or because I'm a sustainable destination, people should just come to me anyway. I've got the moral high ground. And you need to make sure that your websites are unique, are seen, are found, and you've got ways of making sure that your websites are remembered and shared. All the standard knowledge about up-to-date current online marketing needs to happen as well for your business. You can't have a substandard website. It would take me a lot longer than the 15 minutes that I've got to take you through this. Next slide. There's ways in which you can improve your customer satisfaction through communicating and making very clear the benefits of sustainability marketing. Can you see the photo on the right-hand side of that lovely old lady eating a yogurt? This is part of a booklet that I found in a hotel in Belfast. And the booklet never used the S word, sustainability, not the other S word, okay? And in what it said in the booklet is, and who made my breakfast? And you opened it, and every 2 pages, on the left-hand side, there was a photo, on the right-hand side, there was a little bit of explanation. And what this really was very helpful for is to actually make sure that people understood the care, the love, the attention, the quality that had gone behind making the breakfast choices. As a result of this new leaflet, TripAdvisor was full of positive comments from the customers about the quality of the breakfast. What's curious is the ingredients had not changed. All that had changed is we had found a way of communicating in an interesting, persuasive way, right? People had always been getting the same ingredients. We had just added value to those ingredients. Or can you see the photo at the top, where there's one person running? Essentially, for me, this has to be male psychology. And it's an example of a half marathon in Barcelona where people, we were hoping that people kind of would recycle their bottles and put them in the bins. And of course, if you're running, you don't do that. And then to encourage people to actually recycle, what they did is they put basketball hoops on the bins. And I'm saying it's a male psychology because if men can score a goal or score a basket, it's a question of male pride. We have to try and do it. So sometimes the communication doesn't have to be in writing. We just have to make it easy. And we need to help customers make better decisions to be able to make it interesting for them. Next slide, because I realize we are probably running out of time and you've got a lot of presentations to get through today. You can improve your marketing and your communications to increase your customer expenditure. And the message you want from customers is not, oh, okay, it's sustainable. You want customers to be able to say, wow, that's a really cool product. The one I particularly like, and I love it if you looked for it, is a campaign in the UK from the National Trust called 50 Things to Do Before You Are 11 3/4 years old. Why 11 3/4? Because it's much more fun than 12, right? And the message here is encouraging kids to do things in nature where they'll get dirty. And yes, they may scratch their trousers. And yes, they may get, come back a little bit sore. But actually, it's all about doing things that have got the zero carbon footprint that mean that parents and children will actually talk to one another, as opposed to both parents and children being attached to their mobile phones. And it encourages people to spend much, much longer in your tourist destination. Every one of your tourist destinations should encourage an equivalent of the 50 things to do before you're 11 3/4 years old to encourage repeat visitors, increase customer expenditure, increase length of stay. So you have to find ways of making your customers feel special and giving them particular things to do so they come back. Many of your customers, particularly when they come to rural areas, and I know that many of your destinations are rural areas, customers don't really know what to do. They're so used to being in the city, they've actually really forgotten how to have fun in nature. And some of the things that you guys propose for them to do are just too complicated for them, right? So find simpler ways of getting them to encourage, to stay. And if you can, then try to package some of those services. Next slide. You can find ways of increasing loyalty and reducing seasonality. And I think that some of the products that we've been putting together as destinations don't really allow us to do that. I think in particular, we need to work a lot more around weather-proofing our offer and adding calendars on different things to do at different times of year. I was doing some training in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago, and I realized that even though it was September, the websites of the tourist destinations that I was looking at had people wearing, swimming shorts and swimming, bikinis. And my message was, when are you trying to attract customers for? And their answer was, well, the autumn. But my problem was, in the autumn, nobody's going to wear a bikini or a swimming suit. You need to change your photos. You need photos that show me what do you want me to do at the time of year when you're trying to attract me. If any of your websites, EMbleMatiC members, right now, this week, have photos of people wearing short sleeves, bikinis, swimsuits. Kill all those photos and give me photos people wearing the clothes you would normally wear in November and in December. Because otherwise you're telling me, do not come back to Crete until you can wear a swimsuit in June. And then you complain you've got seasonality. But hang on, your photos have just encouraged seasonality. The list of activities you can do in your tourist destination has just encouraged seasonality, right? So you need to give me a calendar of different things to different times of year, but don't expect the calendar itself will do it. You need the entire website to be designed to sell me autumn, winter, early spring, right? Don't confuse your customers. And so this is what I'm saying about weather-proofing your offer and giving and also important to give customer reasons to return, but we haven't got time to do that today. Normally this is a 4 or 5 hour training course. I'm trying to do it in 15 minutes. So next slide. As destinations, are you actually really doing your job very well? Are you actually helping businesses to achieve some of the things we've just suggested? Well, let's have a look. Next slide. The one that says 101 national tourism policies. For the UNWTO, I've just looked at their latest report and I helped them kind of edit it. And we found that all 101 national tourism policies across the world that they analyzed mentioned sustainable tourism as being very important. Fantastic. And yet, only 55% of those policies had more than one paragraph about sustainable tourism. And you think, how did that happen? How did we go from the executive summary saying sustainability is really important to only 55% of the policies, then dedicating a paragraph to it? And then only 2% of the policies having explicit actions on what we're going to do for sustainability, right? And EMbleMatiC members, you know your own politicians and you know what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do, right? And very often they will have really lovely speeches, but then the activities to promote sustainability only happen if there is an EU-funded project. But otherwise, they don't really happen as a normal day-to-day thing. Next slide. We have seen examples, for example, from the European Tourism Indicator System, ETIS, that even though it has been downloaded more than 60,000 times from the European Union website, we see that many destinations have acquired knowledge about the importance of sustainability indicators, but very few of them have actually done anything about it. Why? Because the majority of VMOs still focus on marketing. And what's even more sad, how many of your DMOs are printing brochures today that have exactly the same content as it did 20 years ago? Because I know in Catalonia, where I'm from, the Catalan Tourist Board is printing brochures that I was distributing to tourists in 1992 when I worked in a tourist office. And the brochure has not changed. And I think that this is really sad. So I think what we're finding is that there's a really long way to actually change the way in which these tourist boards work. So I'm going to briefly give you 5 more slides with 5 examples of things that we could do different, but I know I need to go quickly because you need to be moving on. So next slide. Number 1, reduce environmental and social impacts. We know that hotels that are certified produce 20% lower waste and consume 20% less energy and less water than hotels that are not certified. If in your tourist destination you encourage hotels to become certified, it is the equivalent to having reduced the consumption by 20% of all your tourists. But you've not reduced the income, you've just reduced the consumption, okay? In Copenhagen, for example, Green Key is the expected standard from every single hotel that is going to engage in conferences, conventions, anything that means major events. Why? Because the trade fair in Copenhagen has said the only way to become a supplier to the trade fair is to be a certified hotel. And therefore all the hotels had to actually change. So an indicator I think you should use as tourist destinations is what is the percentage of your tourism businesses that are certified as sustainable. And when you choose a venue like where you are today, all EU projects should use venues that are certified as sustainable. Because if we are not prepared to use our own euros to promote the sustainable businesses as part of our own projects, why are we expecting that the tourists should do it for us? So I'm really hoping that your lunch today is vegetarian, because you're in a sustainability project. Next slide. Try to encourage tourists that come from markets where you're going to reduce a carbon footprint. As DMOs, as the public sector, I think you have a moral duty to consider what is the carbon footprint of the tourists coming to your place. And think about it. We need if we want to have a planet, and right now this seems optional with Donald Trump and Boris Johnson and Putin and every idiot in the world, trying to destroy the planet, okay? So if we're going to have a planet, we need to reduce our carbon footprint to 2 tons of CO2 per person. Guess what? Your carbon footprint is more than 10 tons per year. The average in Europe is close to 10 tons, but you guys fly. And because you fly, your carbon footprint is way above. Why? Because a flight from London to Barcelona is already half a ton. By the end of this week, you guys have consumed 25% of your carbon allowance for the entire year, just because you went to Crete. So good luck surviving for the rest of the year with the carbon footprint you've got left. How many of you fly every month for projects? Okay? Shame on you. You are actually worse than the worst tourists that we have in Europe, because you fly way too much. So an indicator that we need is what is the carbon footprint per traveler per day. You can find ways of reducing that carbon footprint by encouraging tourists to come from closer to home. You can improve the carbon footprint by saying, okay, we can increase the length of stay. Let's promote that when people come to Crete, instead of staying for 7 days, they stay for 14 days. And therefore the carbon footprint per guest per day is reduced. We can optimize methods of transport and suggest that people come with direct flights rather than having connecting flights, because then that doubles their carbon footprint. Okay, so specifically target markets where you will have the least possible carbon footprint for your market. Next slide. You can now target markets where you can normalize the behavior of travelers. What do I mean by that? Every one of your tourist destinations is focusing on attracting first-time visitors. Why is that a problem? First-time visitors will always visit the most iconic tourist attractions. Who would go to Paris for the first time in their life and not go to the Eiffel Tower? But if you go to Paris for the 4th time, you no longer visit the Eiffel Tower. Okay? So if you encourage and if you write your marketing materials to encourage people to repeat coming to your destination, which means not telling them necessarily about the most well-known attraction of your city, but showing them things to do when you come back, things to enjoy yourself a second time, things to do when you come outside the main season, you can increase customer loyalty. Equally, you can target families and small groups. When in Barcelona a cruise arrives, and I say Barcelona, I could say Dubrovnik, I could say many other places. When a cruise line arrives and the doors open, it looks like a tsunami. Okay, you got thousands of people coming out of that boat. How are the local people supposed to cope with this? You could attract the same number of people, but in families and small groups, and it's much, much easier to accommodate those groups. It's a little bit like rain. The important thing is not the number of liters of rain, but did it rain in half an hour, or did we have bits of rain over a longer period of time, and then the ground can absorb it? And try to target tourists that are not visible. Target tourists that come for a yoga holiday. Try tourists that come for activities that you don't have to see them getting drunk in the streets or causing a lot of noise or causing disruption. Okay, so an indicator could be your social impact assessment for different market segments. 2 more slides, I'm finishing, trust me. You try to reduce seasonality and distribute tourists. I don't want to say much about this, okay? We've already mentioned it before, but there are ways in which your own marketing is encouraging seasonality, right? You do not need to promote July and August. If your destinations are not full in July and August, you are dead anyway, right? Promote the off-season. You know that July and August sell themselves, right? So promote to me every other season, okay? And one more slide, optimize the sustainability profit. Here's one more photo here of the 50 things to do before 11 3/4. Remember, profit is sanity, volume is vanity. You need to focus on profit margins, not on total number of visitors. Don't allow your tourists, your politicians to go on television again and say, this is the best year ever because we have the largest number of tourists. We need to change the culture where the largest number of tourists is success. Success means the best profit margin, not more tourists. So we need to increase visitor expenditure on products that leave the highest amount of profit in my destination. What am I suggesting here? That for you as a tourist destination, you stop working with the really large businesses that have high economic leakages, and instead you work with small businesses that have got a much better ability to keep the money in the destination where you are. Last and final slide. Thank you very much for your patience. I hope that my 20-minute presentation has been of use to you. Thank you. Okay, I cannot hear you. I don't know if you have any questions.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you so much. I think that it was really interesting for a lot of people. And then I will ask the room if you have any question for Xavier. I know that in the room, for example, we have entrepreneurs. And maybe they can have a reaction because they are small entrepreneurs. They have developed initiative who should be sustainable normally. And I don't want to oblige them, but it could be interesting to have the reaction of the...
I couldn't really understand what you were just saying now, because I think that there's maybe you were too near the microphone, or maybe there's a problem between the microphone and the speakers. So maybe stand a bit further from the microphone.
Can you hear me better if I don't move anymore?
I can hear you, but I don't understand everything. So if we don't understand, maybe you can type the question on the laptop, and then I can just understand it better.
Can you hear me better? No.
Yeah, try again, but don't get so near the microphone.
Can you hear me like this?
Yes, but I don't understand everything. Try.
Like this, it's better?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, then I don't move anymore. I was telling that we have in the room tourism entrepreneurs who have developed initiatives which normally are sustainable. And that's why I ask maybe one of them who come from Slovenia to have a reaction after your speech, because I think it could be interesting.
Hello?
Okay, can you turn down the volume on your loudspeakers in the room? Just leave the microphone, but turn down the volume in the speakers. Because there's a lot of echo.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Mateja. I'm coming from Slovenia. So I'm an entrepreneur, and as your colleague explained, I'm doing different initiatives. Actually, what I heard today from you, it's hopefully nothing really new, because but on the other hand, I am happy that we are actually moving in the right direction with our project, because we are really focused on whatever we do, that we are doing in a sustainable way. It is not just something, I always say it's not trendy, it's a way of living, it's a way of life. Be sustainable. And I'm always also repeating that it is important at the same time to educate, especially the next generation. So, and when we are developing products, tourist products, we have to focus on the generation that is coming. So we are now talking about the generation of the millennials that are coming, and that they will travel in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So whatever we are now developing, we have to focus on them, and especially so the young generation, it's more and more aware of the sustainability, and it is for them something normal. They were not educated. They are growing up in this way of life. So I was really pleased to hear your key points, your cases. Very, very interesting. So I do hope that also all the members of the EMbleMatiC Conference, in the next step, they will follow the developing of the project in that way, but always focused on the stakeholders. Because as long as you could do a really good project, if the members of the local environment, of the local area are not involved, and if they do not take it for as themselves, it will not work out. So
yeah, I fully agree, and actually. I don't know how, when you move the microphone, what you were just saying now was very clear and I could understand everything. So that worked a lot better. And I fully agree. I think in Slovenia, you've got many examples of good sustainability practices. And I need to spend more time looking at the way in which those are being communicated to consumers. I agree that young consumers clearly are the future, but I have two things to say about that. One is very often we use that as a way of saying, because the young consumers will do it, we don't need to worry yet. You know, that will sort itself out. The young people will do it for us, which some businesses, not everybody, but some businesses have used an excuse to not act yet. And the second thing is young travelers are very seasonal, and we need to find a way of reducing seasonality so your businesses can survive in the winter and in the shoulder seasons as well. And the markets that are less seasonal tend to be the elder markets. So I think we need a project that brings together how to reduce seasonality with how do we design more sustainable products for the markets that are willing to travel off season.
Yes, a reaction?
Thank you. No, just yeah, I agree totally, and that's why we are doing actually a project about that. Later I will explain. So encouraging the to go out from the seasonality. So I completely agree with you when you said that if you don't have to promote July and August, because if you don't work in July or August, you don't exist actually. Yeah. But it's also true that you know, what is the main problem? The problem is if we want to go out from the seasonality, so and sell our capacity in the other season, we have to have a content. We have to have products. Without the products, we don't exist, because people are not looking anymore for the sun, sea, and sand, but people are looking for different experiences. So.
Yeah, that's right. But for so long, we have succeeded by selling products that were substandard. And I think it's about time that we become real professionals. You know, tourists want to become the protagonists of their holiday. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, we've been selling them things where they can be observers. Well, that doesn't work anymore. And as you say, particularly for the young millennials, that really doesn't, well, you know, it won't work. You know, they want something else. If I look at how I order a pizza now compared to 10 years ago, it has completely changed. How I talk to people all over the world. And yet the brochures that we're using and the things that we're promoting have not changed for a very long time. I look at Barcelona, and at most, they've translated the brochure into 2 more languages. Now it's also in Chinese, and a few years ago they translated in Russian. And I know they say to me, well, Salvador Gaudí is the same person, has not changed. But come on, you know, I think we can do better than that. And I know that the Eiffel Tower is still the same as it was before and so on. But I think there's other ways that people want to experience the cities that they visit. And when I say the cities, you know, I'm just trying to give those an example. But all of us, we can promote places in a very different way now. But I think that many of our entrepreneurs are not very innovative. And even worse, the public sector is really averse to innovation. Individual businesses will innovate, but the public sector is just terrible at innovating and taking risks.
I agree with you, and that is, I think it will be a really great challenge for the future, for the public sector to be flexible and to support innovation, and especially to support private initiatives, because without the private interest, there is no development.
I think the question is to find a balance between public and private stakeholders, and maybe, of course, because the innovations that you could develop as private stakeholders could be disseminated because you have also the support of a local authority who could disseminate and support other local private stakeholders by training, for example, or something like that also.
Sure.
Do you have any other question, maybe, from local authority?
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much for listening. I realize that doing these on Skype is not quite the same, but I have now signed a pledge that I will do 9 out of my 10 conferences by Skype, not by flying, as my own pledge to reduce my own carbon footprint. So I'm very glad that you allowed me to do these via Skype. Of course, I would love to have lunch with you and talk all evening with you. We have to find a way. Yeah.
Excuse me, Xavier, is it possible to have a last question? 2 minutes?
Say it again?
One last question is possible?
You have one, oh, yes, of course. You have one more question, yeah?
Okay.
In Greek.
Okay.
1 minute because we have to, the translator could come. Yeah. Thank you.
Καλή σας μέρα. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ και πιστεύω ότι σας ευχαριστούμε όλοι για τις...
So, good morning. Thank you very much for your presentation. I feel that we all present here thank you very much for what you told us.
My name is Anastasia. Το όνομά μου είναι Αναστασία Φρυγανάκη. Είμαι από το Ρέθυμνο, αλλά τώρα δραστηριοποιούμε από το 2000 στο Μυλοπόταμο.
So my name is Anastasia Friganaki. I originally come from Rethymnon, but I have been working and operating in the area of Milopotamos since 2000.
Είμαι κλασική φιλόλογος και έχω σπουδάσει και περιβάλλον και το λειτουργήμά μου με βοήθησε στο να κάνω μια μεγάλη διατριβή στα ιστορικά σπίτια στο Μυλοπόταμο. Αγόρασα ένα σπίτι, το αποκατέστησα.
Θα πρέπει να κάνετε μικρότερες προτάσεις για να μπορώ να διερμηνεύω.
Αγόρασα ένα σπίτι, έκανα μια διατριβή και το αγόρασα, το οποίο τώρα το χρησιμοποιώ σαν ένα πολιτιστικό σταθμό, αγροτουριστικό κατάλημα.
I have studied environmental issues. I'm a philologist, that's my profession. Anyway, I have conducted a thesis. I wrote a thesis on traditional houses, and I bought myself an old house in the area of Milopotamus, and I have transformed it into a cultural center, into an agro-tourism center.
Πιστεύω ότι ο δημιουργός ενός καταλύματος πρέπει να μένει μέσα και να μην δίνουμε όπως ήθιστε ένα κλειδί, ένα καθαρό σεντόνι και ένα κρεβάτι. Αυτό δεν είναι τουρισμός. Και ο τουρισμός πρέπει να συμπορεύεται με τον πολιτισμό.
I feel that tourism has to coincide, has to go hand in hand with culture. Therefore, what I wish to say today is that when we create activities, we ourselves have to participate in them. So personal participation is of paramount importance. And if you create like apartments or shelters or houses to host tourists, you yourself have to live in them and conduct the activity by being present in what you do personally. That was my point.
Okay, so let me just quickly answer to that.
One minute. Σέβομαι το χρόνο, απλά έχω να προσθέσω ότι έχω 12 συνεργάτες από την περιοχή και έχουμε συστήσει το πρώτο οικομουσείο στην Ευρώπη, Eco-Museum, διάφορα προγράμματα και προωθούμε μέσω του κριτικού πρωινού τον πρωτογενή τομέα και έχουμε μια αρίστη συνεργασία με την τοπική αυτοδιοίκηση και κυρίως με τους κατοίκους και τους επαγγελματίες της περιοχής. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ.
And one last thing, if I may. Myself, in cooperation with 12 partners, created the Eco-Museum, and we are trying to promote our territory through the Cretan breakfast. And allow me to also say that we have an excellent level of cooperation with local authorities. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for your experience that you've shared. I feel you're explaining more how you're one of the cases of the type of business I was talking about more than asking me a question per se. I feel that you are quite typical of the kind of business that we want to encourage to now think, how do I communicate these great things I'm doing in a way that the customers will really want to engage with them? And very often what we find is that we do all this really great work, but we get very close to actually communicating it in a way that the customers will understand it, find it, understand it, and then value it. And so the challenge sometimes is then looking at the specifics about how you have done your communication and how have you shared some of those experiences in a way that the customers would basically really be able to appreciate it. If I looked at your website, maybe I would be able to give you some specific examples on how you can maximize that interest from the tourists or the ability to convert it, because very often when we're very convinced about our own product, we communicate it in a way that we're communicating it to convince other people who are just as committed as we are that the product is brilliant, but the majority of our customers are less committed than that, and they need something that comes across as much more of a holiday experience. And a lot of our sustainability communication sounds like we're communicating to the environmental police. You know, it sounds like we're communicating to an environmental auditor or an expert as opposed to somebody who's going on holiday. And that's what I was saying when I was looking at these 1,800 messages that we analyzed recently, and we found that there are many, many opportunities to communicate in a more persuasive way so customers will understand. But this is then, we then go to the case-by-case, examples and how we could specifically focus, and for which we would need a lot more time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Xavier. I think we can Thank you, a collective thank you. Thank you for sharing us this important point, and I think we will think about during the development of our emblematic eco journey. Thank you so much, and see you.
Thank you, and have a good rest of your event.
Thank you.
Bye.
Can we switch off? Thank you. Okay. Now it's time for our last session before the lunch. I know that this is a very long morning, but very also interesting, I think, for all of you. We will continue with our two main speakers, Nicolas Evrard. Please come to join me, maybe here. And Patricia Quillac. I know. Yeah. I introduce both of you. Nicolas Evrard, you are the mayor of an alpine municipality called Servoz, a rural and preserved mountain village of 957 inhabitants. You are the vice chairman of a group of municipalities called Mont Blanc-Chamonix Valley, in charge of territorial development and innovation. You are also here today to represent the European Association of Elected Representatives from Mountains area, based in Brussels, which gather elected representatives of local or regional level coming from European countries. You will explain us later the role of the association. And then we have Patricia Quillac. You have a multi-faced experience ranging from international legal advising and diplomacy to a specialized knowledge of environmental matters. You come from Andorra region, and you are a mountain lover since you grew up in the Pyrenean region. Among your various experiences, you worked for the Andorra region in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Yes, sorry. State. And you were the project officer for the Alpine Convention, where you contribute to the action plan on climate change in the Alps. Then you work for Mountain Partnership, and I will give you the floor in order to present the Mountain Partnership. Yes. Sorry, 1 minute. Okay. Then Patricia, can you present very quickly Mountains Partnership, and then, in your opinion, because you are in contact with a lot of mountains in the world, in your opinion, what is the main challenges of the mountains in sustainable development?
Okay. So good morning, everyone. So yes, I do come from the Principality of Andorra. I am a regular Cretan tourist, so I am one of those who come back because it is my 5th time in Crete, and I'm very happy to be here to talk about something that we have all in common in the mountain places, is to achieve this balance. And first of all, I will present you the organization for which I work at the moment, which is the Mountain Partnership Secretariat, which is a little team who is in charge of the Mountain Partnership within the UN and hosted by the Food and Organization in Rome headquarters. So first of all, of course, I don't need to insist why mountains, but not only in the Mediterranean, but also globally. They represent more than 20% of the earth of the world, the land territory of the world. Can depend according of the definition, but let's state on the UN criteria. 15th of the global population. It hosts and reserves and stores, they are called the water towers, not for nothing, 60 to 80% of the world fresh water. Again, there are differences according to the calculations, but let's say that this is enough large marge. And then we have hosting also, we are 25% of the terrestrial biodiversity, so it's very rich areas. However, and to me, it's also very important because I think it's something that has been there for the whole story of humanity is the spiritual value of the mountains. They are temples and churches and sacrifice places in the mountains like we saw yesterday in the cave. So it's there and it's part of why the mountains are also valuable. But mountains are under pressure all over the world, not because of tourism only, but because first, as Guillaume told, there's a climate change will impact mountains more harshly than other regions. The temperature will increase more difficultly, more rapidly than in other regions. And of course, it will provoke hunger, poverty, migrations. It's already happening. At the moment, one of the already ongoing is that a lot of people in the mountains are malnourished. It may not be the case in the Mediterranean, but it is elsewhere. And in developing countries, they say that, let's say, half of the population who live in the mountains face real food insecurity. So situations for them can change very quickly. A flood, an earthquake, climate change, changing the local, crops, and things are really at stake there. And there have been, and this food insecurity keeps increasing. We produce a report every 3 years, and it shows that this food insecurity is increasing. Also because the population in mountains is increasing too. So even though there is migration, the population in mountain area grows, but so grows the food insecurity. And that's mostly it. So just to recall you why the Mountain Partnership exists and the Secretary exists, it's because it has been a slow in working in the international agenda to make the mountains visible. And that started mostly in 1992 with the Agenda 21, adoption of Agenda 21 in Rio de Janeiro. And there's a Chapter 13, which is entirely devoted to mountains. And from 1992 to 2002, there has been a huge work made by some countries like Switzerland, like Italy, Bhutan, and other, really Austria as well. Andorra was a little bit part of that at the end, between 2000 and 2002, where we're really advocating for putting the mountains in front. And we had the International Day of the Mountains, which is 11th of December, can be used a very important communication tool. We had 2002 as the International Year of the Mountains, and it is there where the UN decided to create a little team who would keep the fire of the mountain agenda at the international level, and this is why there is a Mountain Partnership Secretariat. It's a partnership of type 2, so it involves governments, it involves other international organizations, it involves also, for example, municipalities. Someone was asking me about who in Spain is part of the Mountain Partnership. We have, like, for example, La Municipalidad de Denia or the Yuso in Cantabria. We have few associations and NGOs. We have more than 300 associations. If you want, you can go just so we have more than 377 members, and as I said, we are 60 governments. We have more than 16 international organizations. We have more than 293 groups, which are NGOs, cooperatives. We have private also stakeholders, And the major point for all of us is to want to be an actor of the sustainability of mountains, to preserve all the characteristics that I mentioned at the beginning. And we share a common value and a common vision, common values. And this is really pretty much the only criteria you need to be part. All of you could be part of the Mountain Partnership if you want. And that's it. It is financed mostly by the Italian and the Swiss government. Andorra at the moment is contributing through me. It's paying my salary for 3 years so I can help the secretariat and give examples also that other countries maybe can do the same, because it's very little staff. There are 8 people there working for at the global level, but they are a very devoted and active team. So basically that's it. I think there's nothing else. Well, as I said, we're mission-driven because the mission is the one I exposed. Membership-driven because we have a global conference every 3 years, and there are the members who decide what we need to do, what is the route to be taken in terms of work, and also what they want us to achieve, main goals. It is consensus-based. We do not have votation, so everything is adopted very nicely. There's a balanced participation in terms of regional representation in the organs, and also gender balance, of course. We have a flexible focus because, of course, we have this strategy, which is 3 years long, but, you know, we have to be focused on our goals, but we have fluctuations in terms of income, of financing, and of staff, so that's why we said we have a flexible focus, and we are very transparent, so that would be the Mountain Secretariat. That's it, I believe. That you can skip is just figures. And what we do mostly is we advocate. We keep advocating for the mountains. We share knowledge. So I'm going to share what you have explained here. Everything that the EMbleMatiC Mountain have been doing, we will hope to share, and hope you will help us to share it. And we share it also through capacity development. We do a lot of training, and through joint action. So yes, that's, I think, I believe that was the Mountain Partnership.
Okay.
That you can skip.
Okay, thank you. And according to your experience, what are the challenges of mountains in terms of sustainable tourism?
So I think that Guillaume, in part, has really sort of shortened what I will explain you here, because he has been had more maybe time than me to think about it. You can turn on the presentations. A few facts globally is that the tourism in mountains, what we know for sure is that 15 to 20% of the global tourism of the world. So it's not a small part, and it represents more or less, I don't remember, it's 10% of the world GDP. So we are 1/5 of the world GDP, which is not bad. What is also sure is that we have insufficient data in general about how much money remains in the mountain territories from global operators. We do not have enough information about genders, about ages, so you can make everything that Guillaume and then Xavier was telling you about marketing, about showing who you want to come in your territory. And of course, as he said, there's a real attractiveness and the real potential of mountains of tourism as an industry to improve the livelihoods of the people. That is sure. That's what we know. But the bad part is that they are very vulnerable regions. And what we often know, what we often acknowledge is that tourism will trigger in a spontaneous way change, or it can enable change. You can use it to change. And so it might have an ambivalent effect. It might have a positive effect. It might have a negative effect. It's for you, as Guillaume was saying, really, how can we guide this tourism to enable the changes that we want to see, not the changes that will happen because people will have more money, buy more cars, have bigger houses, just to shorten it very quickly. The major concern, so that will be the first part of my presentation, very quick again, is that we are facing socio-economical, you can put them all if you want, socio-economical issues, because what we are for sure at the global level, maybe not so much focused on Mediterranean, but in general, is that tourism income will increase general income, and so it will create shifts also socially, like if women, you know, they can sell their knitting shirts, or they will give more independence. It will shift social relationships, and that in the hierarchies, in the groups, it may give voice also to indigenous groups, to marginalized groups, and that we have seen that it can change the relationships, which can be positive, but it also can create tensions. And what we also have seen is that there is not an equitable distribution of the benefits, and that's what all you are trying to do for your territories, but not all territories of mountains in the world are achieving these results. So when it's not well thought, we really see that the ones who are taking all the benefits are the major operators and not the local communities.
It should be linked to the strategy as it was mentioned before.
So there's really a disappointment, a delusion of the communities about what tourism may bring. They see people come and they see people leave. And because really that's what they see. And that's it basically in terms of social, economical issues. Then of course we have, it should say, no, that's, can you turn off? Okay, no, something is getting wrong. Okay, so can you go back? Okay, so here it should say, I don't know why, environmental issues. Environmental issues, and there should be something about like climate change. I'm doing from memory. It should say climate change. No, go back, because it has replicated the, I don't know why. You see the content is the same. It's okay. So the other concern is environment. So it's climate impact, that's for sure, but we have increasing pollutions because, as Guillaume said, flows, and Javier was saying, you know, the flows, they generate waste, they generate pollution. So these are environmental concerns. I don't need to talk about you. Some of you are probably more knowledgeable about than me. And water pollution in terms of your water resources. Do you have enough fresh water? What about the water treatment? So all these are environmental concerns. We can go just to the next, because I will remember this should be cultural issues. And what is at stake here is cultural traditions, traditional livelihoods, and the risk of folklorization of your culture, you know, then it becomes just something that you're buying, that you're packaging, a little Greek dance, and that's it. And it might be interesting, but it's also a risk of really making it just a product that you sell without the human value. So this is what we were really mentioning among the risks.
Yes, and if I can add something on this topic, it was a subject that we spoke about during our project. We don't want to show the postcard of our area, but really to show the reality and the local development with all the involved people. Yeah.
And of course, at the global region, the global level, you have you can see that, for example, in Nepal, in Himalayas. You know, people go there really for the postcard.
Because a challenge
because there is also the spiritual value I was mentioning at the end, between the market product and the real spiritual experience, or what the people are really living. Sometimes we have been seeing that, and there is there's a publication there, I think. Yes. You can find this publication online. It's full of examples, of positive and negative examples of tourism development in regions. And you have the Kailash region in the Himalayas, where they made a very good partnership with ECMOD, which is an international mountain organization, to plan, because it was getting completely out of hand, and they have reviewed their strategies in terms of flowings, and because these three concerns that I was telling was really getting completely out of hand. So they made a plan, and there are plenty of examples. So that would be also the cultural part of it, okay? The major concerns. So we can go hopefully to the, let's pass it because I resume it, yes. So the risk and opportunities, so what is at stake really? As I said, there was the cultural identity, the folklorization of the loss of identity, but what is also shown in so many of these examples is that tourism can also provide an alternative of income, an alternative income that can counteract the already ongoing process of loss of identity, because we want it or not, we are in a process of globalization. And tourist income may help people to stay, as one of the elected persons was saying, to stay in these territories and to fight or resist a little bit and to maintain their livelihoods. And there are very good examples. And for example, the Kailash is an example, but also, for example, even though at the moment it's kind of compromised because of the political events, but you would have the Nigerian mountains, the Nair Mountains, where the traditional Tuaregs who have lived in nomad way of life, tourism allowed them to maintain their herds of camels, not to sell them, not to become sedentarized. So even though the reason of why they were nomads was changing, or why they had camels has changed, it allowed them to retain some of their identity. For that they were grateful. So tourism can help to maintain. And it also can help to reshape a mountain identity that has been lost. For example, in France, I'm thinking about a very close valley to Andorra. It's called Ariège-Vic-de-Sauce, in Ariège region, in La Vallée de Vic-de-Sauce, had strong hydropower, hydroelectrical power. So there was a very important fabric of aluminium from Péchinet, a French industry, that was settled there. As long as it went during the 19th and early 20th century, it was fantastic for the region. It benefited of all the income. The moment after the Second World War it closed, everything went down. And through tourism, this valley is being reborn at the moment, and it's recreating its own identity by targeting outdoors activity like parapente, like a lot of hiking, and they are really recreating a new identity and giving value to their territory. So this is the opportunity. So that I said, we can pass. And again, I don't know, you might have a virus, I don't know.
Very quickly.
So now you can go through that. I said it already. I don't know, there has been sort of a bug. And my recommendations, or our recommendations, are very similar to what has been said by the two experts before. It's the importance to plan the development. I think that we don't see it because of the... first is to strengthen both the awareness of the population and the tourists. Both experts have been saying that in many better ways than me, but this is that we think at the Mountain Partnership is that both the local population and tourists should be aware of the question of sustainability. So it's on both sides. Next. And we need to plan and we need to monitor. So and the planning has to be a community approach, inclusive of the local community, of the local authorities, and the local entrepreneurs. Of course, the three parts need to be. This community needs to set goals and objectives for itself. What is it that they want to achieve? Okay, much numbers or much profit? That's what I'm saying, no? Maybe here at the moment we can afford more numbers, but also more profit. And to guide and to direct the local change. Okay, again, collect data because there's not enough data, nor here nor globally. And we need to keep assessing the impact of major infrastructures on ecosystems and landscape. We need to assess the natural costs on the territory, of the tourist flow. And we need a permanent reevaluation. What is good now might not be good in 10 years' time. And that is what we need to keep doing here and everywhere. And that's, I think I finished mostly. what we are doing from our sides, we have observed that there's a need of training, of information and educating the population to give specific training to the local entrepreneurs and to link what they were saying, build partnerships. And from our side, we do the course on sustainable management of tourism. There's 2 weeks every year. It has been going now for 15 years. And we do a summer school also on agrobiodiversity that has just been done in Rome. So basically that's the other real need that's in terms of global tourism. And I was just join us, share with us everything that you know. Let us share what you have been learning, and talk to me, talk to my colleagues, but join the Mountain Partnership movement, or simply join the Mountains Matter movement. Just put the Mountain Matters movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. We can see that the challenge of the Mediterranean mountains are common with, or maybe the opposite, are common with the other mountains in the world. Nicola, maybe I can, sorry, I can give you also maybe a short presentation of the European Association of elected representatives from mountain regions. What is the role of this association? And then the same at the European level, what are the main challenges in terms of sustainable development for mountains region?
Thank you, Severin. I will try to be as short as possible. Thank you very much to invite me. It's a great pleasure to meet you today because I already made few Mediterranean mountain networks, but yours is certainly one of them you see more interesting because it's sustainable. Definitely it's coming from the ground level and it's important. It's not a top-down initiative, so that's really important for me and you would understand why I'm saying that. EM, the European Association of Elected Representatives, was in fact set up at the late 80s. It was an interesting opportunity, in fact, because this period was the one of new mountain law, in particular in France, kind of increasing attention also in Italy, many things around mountain communities, and of course, a kind of interesting context in few regions. I'm thinking in particular of Catalonia, which has developed a little later on, some regional policy for mountain areas, but also at the European level, during the two Delors presidency, the European Union had a specific attention to regional matters with the creation of the regional policy, and also through the CIP, some, I would say, territorial approach, and the leader was, of course, a great example of that. The GAL are still moving actors, living actors at the ground level, and certainly that's due to this period. Therefore, European affairs became a great challenge for mountain regions in a large sense of local and regional authority. It became a political matters, because at this period, you see, European Union was a little absent of local action, except through the CAP. Therefore, RM decided to gather many actors, directly or indirectly. At the age, RM was gathering about 10,000 municipalities, 100 provinces, and about 50 regions in all Europe, in France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, and Slovakia. Few Greeks, some, you see, information coming from the ground level. That's also the case, and that's why it became a little more important, of the Committee of the Regions. And RM was really active, and are still trying to involve as much as possible member of the Committee of the Region, even if it's not so evident, because the Committee of the Region is only an observator institution of the European Union. In 2001, RM decided to create a Brussels an office in Brussels to be closer to the European Union, and I was charged of this creation, and we decided to have an active strategy of lobbying towards the European institution. In 2004, we had our first result. The European Union and its former Commissioner Michel Barnier, which is still in fact in the circle, decided to launch the first study on mountain territory. And it was really interesting because, you see, we only had, and in Brussels it was the only approach of a kind of rural approach or agriculture approach of the territorial fact of mountain areas. And it was not so transversal. It was really sectorial. There, after this study, it was more territorial. It was more transversal. We see that the question of mountain development or mountain sustainable development is also linked to a kind of integrated approach. I would come back on that later on. Following this study of the European Union, or the European Commission, IOM has launched a project, and that was one of the first meeting was in Crete already. It was called Interact because it was in the Interact program, the first round, and it was called Promonte. And we analyzed also the role of territorial cooperation toward mountain areas. It was not only the mainstream action of cohesion policy, it was also to look at the territorial cohesion challenge, and we see that territorial cooperation is a key factor, and you demonstrate it, of course, of mountain development. We need to be gathered. We need to be around a table to work together, because if not, we are not strong enough. We are too weak to fight against the great challenge of having more fun for our region, having more capacity building. In fact, also at this period, I met Patricia because one of the key challenge in Europe, in particular in its alpine dimension, was the Alpine Convention. It was regarding some point in some countries more carried by member states. It was the case in France. Firstly, member states and NGOs decide to create the Alpine Convention, and local and regional authorities was a little afraid about it. In some other countries, I think in Austria, for example, it was more linked to regional and local activities. But of course, member state of Austria government in particular was really supporting the Alpine Convention. We also had a great work in 2006 around the European Convention. We was in charge of redacting the constitutional treaty, and which became a few years after the Lisbon Treaty. It was an important action of lobbying for mountain territories, and we reached, with the help of the Italian government, to have Article 174. It was called in the Constitutional Treaty 156, but then in Lisbon Treaty it became 174. And it was important because it was the first official recognition at this level, at this European level, of the specificities of mountain regions. Mountain regions as cross-border regions, coastal regions, islands in particular, or sparsely populated regions, are recognized the need of having a specific approach. That's really important because if not, we would have exactly the same thing, the same policy in metropolis, in urban areas, and in our territories. And of course, we know that it's not possible. Therefore, after this article in the treaty, it was a good step, but not enough, because we have to decline it in operational policies. We also made a strong lobbying toward cohesion policy and also CAP with our colleague from Euro-Montana, more specialized on rural development and agriculture. We also made a great strategy toward competition policy, because we know that the question of state aid policy and regional state aid in particular are really important in our territories. We had, almost good results, but the problem is that most of the member states decide not to apply, not to decline this European policy into operational action at ground level. Between member states and somehow regional authorities, they decide that there was finally not so much mountain specificities. They were afraid about how numerous because in fact, if we are not so many people living in mountain, there is many, many mountains all around Europe. In somehow, we are between 35% and 40%, depending on the definition of what is a mountain region. So that was a little frightening for many institutions at national and regional level. Therefore, the first good initiative of the European Commission to develop specific programs for mountain regions was developed in particular in France and in Italy. I was really active personally to develop the interregional operational programs in France, in particular in the Alps and in the Massif Central. Now it's developed in every mountain massif, mountain range in France, because you may know that the national law in France was developed at this level of action, this level of governance. It's an interregional approach. It was also declined, this interregional approach, in inner Italy, with a specific approach for inland Italy. And it was also reproduced for the actual period 2014 and 2020. In many places, the opportunity of having a local lead development was not accepted by regional or national authorities. You see, through the leader approach, the leader experience, we have already the possibility normally to have this kind of local development approach, or even integrated territorial investments, which are two interesting tools for our kind of territories. But in fact, it was only reserved for metropolized or urban approach. That was for our association a kind of big problem, because as ever, you see, when it's a pyramidal construction, it's hard to make local actors develop their visibility at European level. There is so many intermediary states, strats, levels, that in fact, finally, we are lacking the ground bottom-up action. And that's why we are deciding since last year to reorganize completely our association, trying to find, you see, something more linked to transnational actors, interregional actors, interregional networks, or you are defining, and trying to be more ground-oriented than we used to be. I will certainly come back on that later on this afternoon. To try to answer to your question, because I think it's more important than European affairs. I would mostly agree with what Guillaume and Xavier said, because finally they are the experts, and clearly their experience is really interesting. I would certainly also insist on the fact that natural and cultural heritage are certainly what can help us the more to have sustainable development of tourism in our territories. I would always think that Mediterranean mountains are specific because they are all around the Mediterranean Sea exactly the same. You all have the culture of olive, almonds. There is thyme, laurel. There is vineyard on cheese, but mostly sheep and goat cheese. And that's not, you see, that's funny, but not so funny, because that's typical. That's authentic. And wherever you want, it's not the same case, it's not the same example, it's not the same art of living in the Alps. And this art of living is certainly the best experience you could propose to tourism. You see, we were speaking this morning about slow tourism, but before slow tourism, we used to have slow food, which was a great trend, in fact, coming back on what is mostly the European identity, to gather around a table to eat. No, that's important, to eat and to have wine, to eat or to have beer. And for me, that's important that, you see, in Mediterranean culture, the moment of sharing something is important. So definitely, my only, you see, purpose this morning to go in your way would say to insist on cultural and natural heritage. Even if you have to face some demographic challenge, if you have to face financial investment and capacity building difficulties. Clearly focus on cultural and natural heritage. Try to imagine action of training to support local actors, to support the fact that local communities have to share by themselves this culture, to develop and to share it with the coming people, with the tourists. As you see, to imagine that these tourist actors could become one day also living actors or living people in this ground, to come and share with them in the long term this incredible culture of Mediterranean areas and Mediterranean inland areas. That's all for me. A short example of what we have done in the Alps, in the French Alps in particular, was what we call the Espace Valéen in our interregional program. Espace Valéen is support, the FEDER, ERDF support to create ecotourism and to valorize our natural and cultural heritage. So you see that
at the scale of Espace Valéen is really
intermunicipality,
yes, a group of municipality. Yes.
So that's an interesting experience that maybe you could share also as an experience. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicolas. Maybe before Patricia can give us an example, do you have any question to Patricia or Nicolas at this stage, or you are? They will stay, both of them will stay during all the day, and then you can also speak with them during the lunch or the workshop. Yeah, Patricia, just maybe one short example of tourism.
So I'm just going to talk of the first one. I thought two, but there are very few slides. You'll see. Can you? At the moment, at the Mountain Partnership, we are working on two projects, and you can skip that one. I'm gonna go. Because we are hosted by the Food and Agriculture Organization, we tend to focus a little bit on the topics of the organizations on our work, because then we end having more money of general. One of the projects we are working is the Mountain Partnership Products Initiatives. The Mountain Partnership Secretariat, in collaboration with Slow Food, is because I'm just linking it with now, has launched in 2016 a voluntary labeling backed up by a value chain that is sort of jargon of the FAO, where they try to put value at each of the steps of the product creation and marketing, and the marketing strategy as well, to benefit small mountain producers from developing countries. So Europe here would not apply, but this is an example of what we're doing. And Mountain Partnership label is a narrative label that tells a little bit of the story of the product and enables the consumer to make an informed choice at the moment they are buying the products. And I don't know how many of you have ever heard of participatory, can you go before, guarantee systems. I don't know if you can click on the, I don't know if it's going to work because I just added it this morning. Okay, so this is a slide that has been made by IFOAM. It's International Organic Certification Organism in the world. And they work, of course, in traditional organic certification, but the PGSs are a system that cost nothing. They are made by the local stakeholders themselves. The producers, they made pledges. They agree to what will make an organic product. They know there will be consequences if they don't respect the principles, and it is growing. It is a system of certification of organic products. So the Mountain Partnership products has been using this because in the countries we are using this, like in the Philippines, in Palau, in the, many countries, also in Thailand, in the mountains, in Vietnam, in Costa Rica, they don't have the money. They are very small producers. They don't have the money to buy and to pay an enterprise who will come and certify that they are organic products. Of course, that limits their extent because they will not be able to export. Okay, this is not it is internationally recognized by some of us, but not by the big markets and the big supermarkets. But it's a way for the local producers who want to certify that they are doing organic to sell organic to the tourists. So I think it's an interesting initiative. You can close here and go back to our slides. So at the moment we are trying to work on, you can see the ones who we are involved at the moment. It's 13 producer organization. We have more than 10,000 small farmers involved in all these projects. Most of them are women. And we have 17 products who are carrying the Mountain Partnership label, and their sales have increased, so we have seen an increase. The production is increasing as well, and the selling price is increasing as well. So for all the partners that are participating in that initiative, the benefits have been real. So one advice we can give you is make a labeling part of your marketing strategies for the local producers. Okay, next slide. Next slide. There was a video. So this is what we call a narrative label. It explains a little bit the story of the product, how it is, who's the producer, what is the product, what is the territory. So that would be it. Next. And where are we present? We are present in Guatemala, in Cuba, in Panama, in Bolivia, in Rwanda, in Kyrgyzstan, in Mongolia, in India. So this is a little bit where all these products are being labeled. Next. And that would be just building on this one, building on this first project. We are doing the Coalition for Fragile Ecosystems. And this is, I want just to mention, because I think you here, the EMbleMatiC Mountains, can bring knowledge to this project. And this is why I say join us, because maybe you really can help us. We are doing this Coalition for Fragile Ecosystem, building on the mountain product, on the one that is labeled. It's a community of fragile ecosystems, mountain and islands, but also mostly mountainous islands, like Crete. Crete is a mountainous island. And it will take place, the official launch will take place in 2020. And we are aiming to do in those countries, and the ones who will join the initiative, is to help them create sustainable tourism models. We are trying to create different models, sort of guidelines to create, okay, you want to make an eco journey, package. How do we do that? There are countries, have territories that have no clue how or where to start from. So you can help them. Oh, do you have a geosite? Oh, do you have cheese production? Do you have tea production? So this is where your experience can also help other mountain regions. So that's it for us. You can close it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this example. And then we can see that even if we developed, a cooperation between European mountains, we see connection with the other mountains, and I think we have to learn from them, and they can learn from our own experience. I think this morning we have the confirmation of key points on which we have based our EMbleMatiC eco journey. Our eco-journey are based on territorial development with what we call a bottom-up approach. It means involving local stakeholders at the ground level, from private, from public stakeholders. We have also a mid-term vision. We develop not a one-shot project, but this first project, eco-journey, must change the way of doing tourism development. And I think it's also key for success for your eco journey. And I think, according to the two experts' speeches, we have also to pay attention to the marketing strategy. We have to go beyond, and we have to think about a larger marketing strategy in order now to develop and to develop our tourism perspective. Then I think you are really now you have a not. I hope so. You have traveled a lot through our eco journey, and just before tasting the Greek food, which is not vegetarian, I think, and you can imagine. Then we are not 100% sustainable. But yeah, two information. The first one is concerning this afternoon. Just after the lunch, we will have 2 rounds of workshop. Each round of workshop is 1 hour and 15 minutes, okay? And you have 3 options, and you have made your registration between the 3 workshops. The room, okay, if someone has not registered on the workshop, please, you can do it now. The lists are there. And we will insert the room, but what can I say is a workshop will be here. I don't know yet which one, but we will put it. The first one, okay. The workshop one will be here in this room. The workshop 2 is on the other, in the corner of the same room. And the workshop 3 is downstairs, from the stair here, and then you go downstairs and you have a room. For the workshop, please try to be very together and not in the last line, but because we won't use the microphone because there is 2 different workshops in the same room, and then it's also better for exchange, and because I know that this morning it was the speeches, but I think it was good to put in perspective our project. But this afternoon you will discover concrete other experience and potential solution which could be inspiration for you. And before eating and before tasting and discovering one emblematic lunch from Crete, I suggest you to continue our travel through our eco journey, and then we will discover 2 new eco journey. I think this is, yes, Pedra. Let's go to Pedraforca in Catalonia, in Spain, and then after that in Sicily with the Etna. Thank you.
Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
Okay, thank you for them. Now I hope at first that the workshop were fruitful and were an opportunity for you to exchange about your respective experience, about concrete experience. Now the conference is almost finished. But for the last session, it was for us important to think about the future, because as we mentioned this morning, we don't want that with this project, this is the end of the EMbleMatiC Mountains. And that's why we have to think about the future. And to think about the future, I will ask Patricia and Nicolas to join me for the last session. And at first, I think it's important to think, because, of course, money is not everything, but money is also a condition to develop project and to remind that mountains are a specific role to play in the future. And that's why at first I will ask Nicolas to remind us, because as you may know, at the moment there are some negotiations at the European level concerning the future cohesion policy post-2020, I mean for the period 2020 until 2027. And can you say us, at the European level, how mountains are taken into account in the future European discussion, even if at the moment nothing is fixed, of course, this is only discussion, but the European Commission has written a first proposition of regulation. And what is the position of the mountains? Are the mountains mentioned in the future text of European Commission?
Yes. Up to you. I will stay here. Yes, you see, the European Commission has proposed some regulation last year in May 2018 for the period post 2020, so for 2021 to 2027. Globally, mountain on specific regions, specific territories are well understood as a challenge for the European policies, for European cohesion policy. But to resume, you may know that there is 5 main objectives for the new regulation. So that's almost stable, and we would have objective of a smarter Europe, which means innovation, digitalization, economic transformation, support to SMEs. It could be interesting for us, but clearly mountain areas are not the core topic of this objective. Greener and a carbon-free Europe, which is more, of course, ecological, more adapt to climate change. That could be also interesting for us. We'll see. Connected Europe, which means better transport, better digital accessibility. Of course, we've got many challenges regarding this point. Transport, normal transport, I would say, even green transport or sustainable transport, but also regarding digitalization. There is a lack of broadband mainly in our territories, so could be an opportunity. But be cautioned that we are still not the core topic of this objective. Social Europe, with quality employment, skills, training, things like that. That's also very important for us, but mainly urban areas are certainly more focused than us. It could be, you see, a challenge to explain to the European Commission that training, for example, or skills, however, are really important to develop our territories first. Without, you see, competences, skills, it is hard to maintain population and to innovate. But for the European Commission, clearly, the 5th objective is the one for specific territories or for urban approach. It is a Europe closer to citizens. That means in this objective, they would develop things like local-led development, sustainable urban development, and specific approach, specific tools for specific territories. These specific tools, in fact, would be also more linked to simplification. That's interesting for us because you know that now there is already some tools. I've told you that a few hours ago. Even if they are not applied by member states or regions, the European Commission has already proposed things for us, specific tools for us. This time, the proposal of the Commission is to have a simple design tailored to local situation. That's important. That means that if we have the capacity to explain to our regional authority, to our national authority, the European Commission would support our local strategies. Therefore, we would have this kind of dedicated policy objective using the 2014-2020 tools, as community-led local development or integrated territorial investments. We could combine active finance under the other policy objective. For example, you could have a kind of local strategy dedicated to smarter Europe or greener Europe. That means that our local strategy could use other objectives to feed it, to fill it with something more specific for us. That's interesting. That's also true that these tools could be used to have kind of multi-sectorial integrated approach, meaning that we could have action directed to local authorities directly, but also to support SMEs, to support association. I don't know. That's interesting. Other things we need, we could add these European tools to existing territorial tools at member state level or even regional level in some states. That means, for example, I would take an Italian example, for example, with the Strategia delle Aree Interne, would be possible to be support with some ERDF, for example, or some European Social Fund in this case. Like in France, a massive approach, massive policy would be supported by ERDF also. That's interesting. There is no competition between national or regional specific policies and European cohesion policy. Other things, they would be more flexible regarding the status of local authorities. It's a question of intermediary body, because nowadays it's not evident for the European Commission. In this, you see a relationship with the member state to define what are the good levels to act. Nowadays, they would be more flexible, so they would accept somehow, of course, local authorities, municipalities, but that could be also possible to have intermunicipalities. I think even a GAL or association of municipalities and private actors could be also eligible. That have to be still defined. But the European Commission want to be more flexible on that. And by the way, this kind of multi-sectorial approach at local level could be using various funds. I said the ERDF, of course, but also the European Social Fund, and maybe the Rural Development Fund. That could be really interesting, because more or less that's an old demand from our side to have kind of multi-sectorial approach, but having not external multi-fund, you see, to separate our project, to cut them in slide, but finally to integrate it better and to have this kind of lead fund strategy with the rule of ERDF, for example, leading the whole action, even if there is European Social Fund. In this in this objective, 6% of the whole ERDF would be dedicated to urban areas. That's our competitor, I would say. We are small, we are David, King David, and you see they are Goliath. So I hope by the way, we'll see who will win. Last thing, the idea is to have also really strong synergies between the various main commune policies, between cohesion policy, common agriculture policy, but also with Horizon Europe, Horizon, it used to be Horizon 2020, it would be Horizon Europe, a little larger. Also with LIFE, you see the environmental program, but also with Erasmus+. That could be also interesting for you, because you know that Erasmus is enlarging its action to also have exchange between experts, I would say, civil servants or even somehow elected representatives. That could be also another way to create network, to create a permanent network of exchanging between you, for example. So if there is a coherent approach, that would be really interesting to support that. The fact is, regarding cross-border interregional cooperation, because that's an important point, there is still a good approach, a positive approach of the European Commission regarding interregional cooperation, territorial cooperation, even if things are moving a little and there is still many debates. In particular, there is still debate regarding MED program. I know that the former Italian government, we'll see with the new one, was asking that MED would be separated in two groups, Eastern Mediterranean and Western Mediterranean, which is not, from my point of view, I think yours also, not so coherent, but we'll see. We'll see the position of the new government, and we'll see that if the other member state would accept this proposal. For the moment, that's not the case. Also, by the way, an important point is that in regional operational program, the regions could dedicate a percentage of the fund, of the regional fund, to be used for territorial cooperation. Then you could imagine your region, I don't know, Sicily, Paca, Crete, to identify a percentage of the operational program, regional operational program, to be dedicated to your cooperation. That could be possible. You have to negotiate with them to do so. However, I would suggest you, not to be too long, and I'm still here to answer for some question, that if you want this kind of integrated approach at local or even interregional level, if you want better or more specified territorial cooperation, even in MED, you should lobby for it. That's the moment to do so. Be strong, be together. You would be more efficient, but be together to ask for it, because if you do not ask for it, never forget that some big urban areas would ask for the money first. So
they have still urban agenda. They are mobilized, the cities.
They are very mobilized and very strong and powerful. And of course, the political makers are closer to urban areas than to rural areas. That's another point. Therefore, keep together a strong lobbying action, not only to exchange best practices as you are actually doing, but keep on with a kind of lobbying action.
Yeah, thank you, because I think this is...
excuse me, another point, important point, because it's linked to what I've been presented this morning. The MED program should normally be also open to external cooperation. It would be the same program to have both internal Europe, between European regions cooperation in MED and with external. So your network could be easily open to Morocco, Lebanon, and whatever. That would be interesting. I think I've got good contact in Lebanon and Morocco. That would be really interesting to join you. But now that would be even easier than it used to be.
Okay, thank you for this optimistic message. And I think because nothing is fixed yet, everything can move again, and that's why we have to, you advise us to make lobbying. How can we do? Have you some advices? Can we, how can we contribute to this lobbying? Have you some first elements of answer?
First, I've got many because it's my work, so it's my job.
That's why I ask you.
First, be present as much as possible as a network in transnational meetings. regarding the future of MAID program in particular, because that's really important that even if you do not do it by yourself, that the regional authorities in charge of the program, the European Commission following the program, have your actions in mind when they are negotiating. That's really important. So that's really the first basic point. The second one would be certainly to mobilize your elected representatives. There were few here, still go on, because that's important to have a kind of political dimension in your action, even if it's not the core topic. It's important that people from everywhere in your network have this kind of political explanation of what you are doing, technically speaking. That's really important because, you see, even if the European funds are kind of technical topic, policy, it's also important that this political dimension would be in mind, even with some of the members of the European Parliament, of members of the Committee of the Regions. That's also important to visit them and to explain what you are doing, because everyone's got more or less a member of the Parliament not too far, or a member of the Committee of the Region not too far, even from the Mediterranean area. That would be important to explain them what you have been doing for so many years with such brilliant results. The other point, we were talking about it during lunch, I definitely think that Europe need transnational network, need kind of transnational governance, because transnational programs, however, and IRA has a good level for a better governance of Europe. That's a level where it's possible to talk between citizens, specific territories, urban areas. It's still possible to act at this level regarding the European governance. So we need, in a way, that your network and other ones could join this, you see, European lobbying action we are doing in IOM, with also Euro-Montana in as a way, finally, but it's the same strategy. And we need you to also express your point of view, your experience, your best practices at European level. So the door is open to concrete our action with kind of, you see, permanent cooperation. That's my venue today is first to listen to you and to learn about you, but also to continue in the future. IOM is is in a moving transition, trying to define first a really smart and small, finally, lobbying action, a lobbying structure, really not too heavy, more flexible and more agile. That's important to be more efficient in a lobbying action nowadays, and also to join in a kind of cooperative action, cooperative way, the various experts of mountain question all around Europe. Because the future is not only to be listened in Brussels, it's also to decline European policy at the ground level. And you are, for that, the best to do so. So that's important to cooperate, because there is not only MED, there is also, for some of you, Sudoe. For some of you, it could be also not so far
cross-border cooperation.
Cross-border cooperation. There is many ways to act. So we need to be, you see, in a permanent contact, a big cooperation activities at interregional level, certainly, but on, you see, coming from the bottom to the top of Europe. That's another possibility to act.
I think everybody here agree with you and that we are on the same boat. And just for information for the people who doesn't know, next week there is the European Week for Cities and Regions. And the EMbleMatiC project has organized a side event. And if some of you are in Brussels next week, do not hesitate to join the event. And this is such conference in which we can promote our project and more generally to promote the mountains area. And as you mentioned it's an important thing in order to catch funds, in order that European policy take into account our own challenges, because we have seen this morning that we have specific challenges as rural area, as mountains area. And I think it's, we heard your message, and now I give the message to everybody, to elected representative, to technician, and we have to think concretely. Tomorrow we have our transnational meeting, and I think we have to think about concretely how can we do that.
So, last word, please. I had a presentation of the reflection we've got in AEM for the future. I've got, of course, no time, and it's not really the core topic tonight, but I would let you the presentation as you see, produce from our European side for tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I don't know if you have a question for Nicole Evrard? Yes. For next week. Okay, the 10th in Brussels. You will find the information on the website of EMbleMatiC. And if you don't go there, but if you have contact with your region and so on, probably your region will be represented in Brussels next week. That's why you can ask to attend to our event in order to hear about the EMbleMatiC project.
I would like to yes, I'm Giorgos Iriadis, and I would like to add, because mostly for the Greek partners here, because here in Greece we have started the implementation of the new programs, the planning of the new programs. We had the first, we have to deliver the first plans in the next week. This is a very important aspect, that territorial cooperation now is going into the regional operational program. So, for example, in Central Macedonia region, the proposal is that for its, in its specific policy objective of the 5 you mentioned, that will be a budget that will be dedicated for territorial cooperation. More of that, the first proposal is including Olibos to form an integrated territorial investment with, which will be interregional with the complementary area of Thessaly, because the mountain is divided in 2 regions. And there it will be possible to keep a budget when this will be specialized. For example, if the numbers are not fixed, but for let's say that the ITI will be 10 million euros, so we can give about 500,000. We can keep 500,000 euros for territorial cooperation in order to see EMbleMatiC in the next years or other initiatives like that. But the time is now that you have to decide and to promote those to the regional authorities or national authorities.
For example, that's exactly what we have been doing in France and Italy during the previous programmation, even in France 2 programations ago, with interregional programs dedicated to mountain areas. It was not exactly, it was pilot action, but that was possible. And then, because we've got the governance dedicated to that, that was not so difficult to have. So there is many experiences, and finally that's a good way to develop sustainably our territories, to have dedicated fund for specific action, because if not, it's going into urban areas mostly.
Okay, then thank you, Nicola. We know that you point out that it's important to promote our areas and our experience with the European Commission. But I think more generally, and now Patricia, I make the transition for you, how can we contribute to defend, to promote the mountains at the international level? Because this is also openness.
Thank you. So this is a difficult question because I just joined you and your results at the end of the line, and I could only participate to 2 workshops, so I could not see the results of so many of the other partners, to me, which is a pity because I've learned already a lot in two of the ones I have participated from. But from what I've heard yesterday, what I saw yesterday, from what I've heard today, from your different projects that you have put in this network, is that you have all achieved a degree of collaboration between the population, the local authorities, and the private sector. And this is remarkable because this is what we need. We need these three partners all the time. And we need, someone was saying, that means a lot of meetings and a lot of hours talking. Yes, you need to deepen always the community-based approach between the main actors. But to forward this, when you have achieved that, and even you have achieved it sometimes by giving it a legal nature, like in the Gran Sasso, and this network is very interesting that you have managed to make a contract, no, that to enter the cooperative network. Once you have created this model that is unique to you, what is interesting is how you link it with the policy levels, how you bring it upwards, how you bring it. First, you have to bring it to the national level, and then from the national level also to the European level. Don't forget also the national level, and from the national level, you know, someone was saying there is tourism, we need to develop a sustainable tourism, but tourism is also a tool for sustainable development. One of the means actually that we have is that all of your states will have to present sooner or later what we call the voluntary national reports at the high-level political forum in front of the United Nations General Assembly. In that, there are several indicators. One of the indicators is the goal 15, which is preservation of the land ecosystem. Among this land ecosystem, there is the mountains, and there are a few targets that specific target the conservation and preservation of mountains. So in order for the ones who are really at the top to listen what you are saying, also the international dimension is there. So tell your national governments also, we are doing this, we want to do this, and please say it also at the international level that we are existing, that the mountain exists. So then it can come back as a pressure to the European Union, because the European Union listens to what international organizations say. So it's all a big feedback loop, and if you pressure national governments who pressure at the international level saying, yes, there are mountains, we need to take care of them, then it comes back to the European Union, gives forces to you lobbying at the European Union. So it all comes from all the different levels. So yeah, for me, also what I would say, I expect from you a beautiful publication where you are all sharing your projects, where you are sharing what you have learned, what you have also experienced that doesn't work, because I think this is very important to share what has not worked. Not even the mistakes, is what you have learned that is not working. Okay, so this is not working. It's a good lesson, and it's not a mistake, it's a lesson. So, and then share it, make a good publication, and bring your experience. And also we can, as I said, the Mountain Partnership, what it does is a platform. It's a facilitator. If you join us or if you don't join us, we will still share your experience. But the more we are, the also for us, because we are continuously asking for funds in front of the Global Environmental Fund, at the Dubai. It's our way of funding. We not get a budget. So we are working mostly with fundings and two countries or 3 countries giving money. So we are all permanently looking for money to then be able to give the money back to the territories, and sometimes with experts like you who will give the expertise at the at the field. So again, it's a loop where everyone wins by sharing the experience, by joining the partnership, whether it's a European Union at the international level. And yes, so that would be my final recommendation. Share, and do please make a beautiful publication that you can also bring on all these lobbying meetings with you.
Thank you so much for this message. It's opened a lot of opportunity, and then, as I mentioned before, tomorrow we have to think concretely how can we manage and who will do what, and how can we organize ourselves in order to make all the things with less financial means, because at the moment no project, no money. But I think the richness is also the people and our experience, and maybe we can do a lot of things in a short term. Thank you. Just for the conclusion, I would like to have also the reaction of the lead partner of the EMbleMatiC project about what we have heard from Nicolas and Patricia. But I know that your taxi is waiting for you, Nicolas, then you can go. And thank you so much for being there and for sharing your feedbacks. Thank you really so much, and I think it will be helpful for us. Then. And Florian.
So, I have the heavy responsibility to conclude this transnational final conference of our InterregMed EMbleMatiC project. First of all, I would like to thank you very much, the HACOM Psiloritis team, for this perfect organization. All the partners were very, very, very busy this last month to finalize their eco journey due to the InterregMed calendar. And organizing such an event in the same times is a really great performance that I want to highlight. So I think that we can applaud again Georgios, Evi, and Dimitrios. Thank you so much for everything. You have a wonderful place, and you make us discover with success and proudness. So thank you so much for this experience. Conclusion is also a time to try to capitalize on what has been said in order to project each other's in the future. As I said this morning in the introduction, this adventure began 7 years ago with a message in a bottle launched through the Mediterranean Sea. The bottle has reached different shores, and the idea has germinated, grew, and bear its first fruit. Today is an emotional moment, the final conference of our EMbleMatiC InterregMed project. That means that the end of this project is near. The end of this project was planned, but not the end of the EMbleMatiC Mediterranean Mountain Network. Even if we don't know exactly yet how we will continue, what we are sure is that we have to continue. We still have so much to do together. We have implemented 9 eco journeys and delivered almost all the deliverable we plan to do. But our objectives defined in 2012 stay the same. And we are all convinced that together we go further with a huge added value. Tomorrow morning, among the partnership, we will have an important discussion about our future. And we will have in mind what Patricia Quillac or Nicolas Evrer have said. It's very encouraging for us to have such network like European Association of Mountain Region, Mountain Partnership, or Euro-Montana by our sides. We are sure till the beginning, what we are sure till the beginning is that the tools, LEADER, MED, COSME, others, are not the finality, but a mean to make our network alive and fertile. In this perspective, of the territorial and local sustainable development on both sides of Mediterranean Sea. So, thank you very, very much, and hope to see you in few months or years for another transnational conference to show you new project results, because we have a lot to implement together. Thank you.
Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.